Oh, here we are. Good day, kiddo.
This is WETS-FM and HD1,
It's my
Johnson
radio
City,
station.
Tennessee.
Yep.
89.5
One
FM.
of the best public
we are also
radio
broadcast
stations
on translator
I've been around.
W218BW, Lenore, North Carolina, at 91.5 FM.
Go listen to them. They're on the internet. Well, what do you think? Here it is, Friday, 20-something of August. And, still ridiculously hot. It's not even about fall. And winter is going to be worse than this summer. I would say sometime after Christmas, the bottom's going to fall out. Nice drum riff. Now we're going to listen to Democracy Now! With Amy. And this is a good example of media, right? You know, this is not like Fox, but it's
from
just
New
like
York,
Fox.
this is Democracy Now!
I left my business and decided to be here at my home to protect it from the settlers to steal it, and raising the American flag to send a message to the American embassy and the U.S. officials that I am currently under siege and I need a protection.
In the occupied West Bank, Israeli settlers continue to lay siege to homes in the village of Kusra. We'll be joined by one of the homeowners, Louis Reedy, who is Palestinian-American. Then, Israel has admitted for the first time that its soldiers fired into the car where 5-year-old Palestinian Hind Rajab and 6 family members were killed in Gaza in January 2024. Israel has opened a criminal investigation. We'll speak to Sharif Abdul Quddus, who's investigated Hind's killing in the Peabody Award-winning Al Jazeera documentary, The Night Won't End. Then, a Justice Department whistleblower has claimed the Trump administration's task force pushed Harvard, Columbia, and Brown into massive settlements despite turning up little to no evidence of anti-Semitism on campus. We will speak to Columbia professor Marianne Hirsch.
This terrible repression under the guise of fighting anti-Semitism. And I think people are now saying that this is not just morally completely wrong and corrupt, but that it's also not good for Jews, certainly, but that it's not good for anybody, and that the reason for this was never to fight anti-Semitism, but it was to decimate academia.
All that and more coming up. Welcome to Democracy Now! Welcome to Democracy Now!, democracynow.org, the War and Peace Report. I'm Anjali Kamath. Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent said Thursday the U.S. will impose the toughest sanctions in history on Iran after President Trump promised to wage, quote, economic warfare and isolation on an unprecedented scale. Bessent told CNBC that U.S. economic pressure would eliminate the need for return to direct combat with Iran. He said tough new sanctions would collapse Iran's government and warned other nations could face severe economic penalties if they continue to trade with Iran.
We are going to all of our allies, and this is going to be the greatest coordinated economic isolation in the history of the world. And we are going to them and saying you're either with us or against us.
Iran's foreign ministry condemned the threat of new sanctions as illegal and inhumane. Meanwhile, the USS George Washington aircraft carrier has arrived in the Middle East to relieve the USS Abraham Lincoln, which has now been plagued by low morale, faulty plumbing, poor quality rationed meals, and shortages of basic supplies. The Lincoln is reportedly heading home to San Diego after a record-setting deployment of more than 270 days at sea. In Yemen, Houthi fighters and government forces have traded dozens of attacks, raising fears that Yemen is sliding back into full-scale civil war for the first time since a UN-brokered peace deal in 2022. Government forces claimed 81 attacks over 24 hours, while Houthi fighters said they'd successfully used drones to strike an airport and an oil facility in Saudi Arabia. Sudan's humanitarian crisis is deepening as more than 200,000 people have been newly displaced across the Kordofan region due to intensifying attacks between the Sudanese army and paramilitary, rapid support forces. Drone strikes have targeted critical water and power infrastructure in the city of El Obeid. Mass floods in North Darfur have also compounded the displacement crisis, with torrential rains damaging hundreds of homes. In Tunisia, hundreds of protesters marched through the streets of the capital, Tunis, on Thursday, calling for the ouster of authoritarian President Kais Saied, the release of jailed opposition activists and journalists, and the restoration of democracy. The protests come as Tunisia faces deteriorating public services, an affordability crisis, and a shortage of some basic supplies and medicines. Many of the protesters chanted, "The people want the fall of the regime," a popular refrain during the Arab Spring uprising that ousted longtime dictator Zain al-Abidin Ben Ali in 2011.
We have gone back to a state where people are afraid to speak the truth or to defend their rights. We fear differences or opinion. We fear debates and discussions. Personally, I say we have returned to the same concepts that existed during Ben Ali's regime. It's the exact same story. We will return to the concept of people fearing the ruler, and we've gone back to many ideas that led absolutely nowhere.
In Mali, a Russian-controlled paramilitary force faces accusations that it carried out the summary execution of 9 civilians, including 4 children, during a raid on a village in the central region of Mopti in July. According to Human Rights Watch, about 100 fighters with the Russia-backed Africa Corps, accompanied by several Malian soldiers, broke into homes, dragged people out, and separated men and boys for beatings and interrogations. They've reportedly killed 6 civilians who tried to flee and detained and executed 3 others. Since 2021, Mali's military junta has relied on Russian mercenaries in its fight against Islamist armed groups. In the occupied West Bank, large groups of armed Israeli settlers stormed Palestinian homes in the town of Sa'id, northeast of Hebron, earlier today, killing a young Palestinian man and leaving a 70-year-old with serious gunshot wounds. Survivors say the settlers set fire to at least 1 home. Elsewhere, Israeli settlers set fire to a quarry in the South Hebron Hills overnight, causing severe damage to excavators, bulldozers, and stone-cutting equipment. The United Nations reports attacks by Israeli settlers and Palestinians have reached an all-time high in 2026, with an average of more than 6 attacks per day, as the Israeli government continues to approve new illegal settlements. After headlines, we'll go to the Palestinian village of Qusra to speak with Louis Reedy, a Palestinian American who flew to the occupied West Bank on Monday to help his relatives defend the family home, which Israeli settlers have surrounded for more than a week. In California, progressive Democrat Aisha Wahab has won a special election to fill the congressional seat vacated by disgraced Representative Eric Swalwell, who quit amid sexual misconduct claims. In 2018, Wahab became the first Afghan-American elected to public office in the U.S. She'll now be the first Afghan-American U.S. Congress member representing parts of the East San Francisco Bay until the new Congress begins in January. This is Aisha Wahab speaking to supporters on election night.
We saw a lot of negative ads distorting our record.
Shame.
Talking about us in a negative way that we're not good enough or we're not American enough.
Not American enough.
And the fact that because I'm an Afghan American, because I'm a Muslim American, because I'm a woman of color, because I'm relatively young, that we don't belong.
5 strikes.
And the voters of this district spoke out. And
you know what the average age in Congress is? 76 years
Democrat
old.
Melissa Hernandez. Polls had showed Wahab with a double-digit lead in early August before AIPAC, the American Israel Public Affairs Committee, poured over $6 million into negative ads and mailers targeting her.
Ideas,
Meanwhile, AIPAC and super PACs channeled at least $3 million to Hernandez's campaign, according to Politico. They will face off again in November to decide who will represent the district in the 120th Congress beginning in January. In related news, FBI agents seized a cell phone and laptop from former Congress member Eric Swalwell after he was stopped at the San Francisco airport Saturday. The following day, federal agents also searched Swalwell's home in Washington, D.C. as part of a civil rights investigation into allegations of sexual assault. Swalwell is also facing probes by the Manhattan District Attorney's Office and Los Angeles Sheriff's Department. CNN reports at least 4 women who've accused Swalwell of serious sexual misconduct have been contacted by the FBI as part of that investigation. In more election news, Reuters reports a handful of billionaires and companies are driving record levels of spending on congressional contests ahead of November's midterm elections, with crypto, gambling, and artificial intelligence firms fueling a flood of campaign cash. So far, U.S. corporations have spent over $500 million on Senate races. That already exceeds the previous record of $461 million spent by corporations during the entire 2024 election cycle, and does not include millions of dollars in additional contributions made by dark.
Hey, good morning, good evening, wherever you are. Welcome to Dreamy Dreamland.
Meanwhile, President Trump is in Myrtle Beach, South Carolina today to support the campaign of Republican Senator Darlene Graham, who was appointed to fill the vacancy left by the sudden death of her brother Lindsey Graham in July. Darlene Graham faces Republican Congressmember Ralph Norman in a special Senate runoff on Tuesday. Critics have called Graham dangerously unqualified after her poor performance in a debate earlier this week.
Dangerously unqualified.
Senator,
Thank you.
are Taiwan and the South China Sea national security issues for the United States? If so, why?
I'm sorry, could you repeat the question?
Are Taiwan and the South China Sea national security issues for the United States, and if so, why or how?
I'm just going to be honest here. I'm not on national security. I'm not that informed on national security, but I do support the military.
Trump administration has deported 20 immigrants to Liberia as part of a new third country agreement that will help see the West African nation receive up to 1,200 immigrants.
Oh, Mr. Bigson, he's so smart. He's so smart. He can't even fly. Oh, he's so drunk. He's so drunk. He's drunk as a skunk.
For Liberians from 12 to 36
go look at any, go to C-SPAN and look up all of the cabinet meetings where these guys, oh, Mr. Trump, you're so smart. Oh, you've done this. Oh, you've done this. Oh, the great, the big, beautiful bill. Oh, it's a miracle.
And which the State Department has deemed too unsafe for travel.
Too
He's
unsafe.
currently detained at the Stewart Ice Jail in Georgia. Meanwhile, in Texas, a minor league catching coordinator for the San Diego Padres was detained by ICE at an El Paso airport as he attempted to travel back home to Arizona. Oswaldo Pirela is originally from Venezuela and has a pending asylum claim and valid work authorization. Pirela lives in Phoenix with his wife and 2 U.S.-born daughters. He previously played for the Texas Rangers minor league team. His brother, Jorge Pirela, wrote on social media, quote, "The people who have worked and lived alongside him can speak to his character, his work ethic, and the positive impact he's had on those around him." The Department of Homeland Security is defending harassment tactics deployed against people who criticize the agency's deadly crackdown on immigrants. That's the claim at the center of a First Amendment lawsuit filed by David Stiever, a U.S. citizen who was on a trip to Finland when 2 ICE agents showed up at his home in Rochester, New York in June. The agents reportedly presented his wife with a warning notice due to an email Stiever had sent months earlier to former ICE acting director Todd Lyons, comparing him to a Nazi and calling him, quote, a monstrous human being. And the New York Times is reporting that the owner of a major Dominican sugar producer accused of forced labor at one of his plantations has close ties to President Trump. Central Romana's owner, Jose Fanjul, a Cuban-American businessman known as Pepe, donated to Trump's 2024 campaign and his White House ballroom. Just weeks after Trump returned to the office, the Trump administration lifted a measure that had prevented the company from shipping its product to the U.S. On Tuesday, the Corporate Accountability Lab, an independent nonprofit, issued a report finding the company is still responsible for abusive conditions. The report found many of the plantation's workers are of Haitian descent. They face poverty wages, excess overtime, and intimidation and threats from management. And those are some of the headlines. This is Democracy Now!, democracynow.org, the War and Peace Report. I'm Anjali Kamath. Amy Goodman will be back next week. Coming up, Israel has admitted for the first time that its soldiers fired into the car where 5-year-old Palestinian Hind Rajab and her 6 family members were killed in Gaza in January 2024. is Democracy Now!, democracynow.org. I'm Anjali Kamath. On Wednesday, Israel's military admitted for the first time that its soldiers opened fire in a car carrying 5-year-old Palestinian Hind Rajab, along with her aunt, uncle, and 5 of their children, as well as Palestine Red Crescent Society medics dispatched to rescue them. Israel's army fired more than 300 bullets in the attack in January 2024. In Gaza City, Hind Rajab's grandmother responded to the announcement.
We, as Hind Rajab's family, do not trust the judiciary of the State of Israel. We hope that justice will be delivered from the entire world. We appeal to the international justice system as a whole.
The Israeli military said it would also investigate the killing of 15 Palestinian paramedics, whose bodies and crushed emergency vehicles were recovered from a mass grave in Rafah in March 2025. This is Ghada al-Attar, the widow of Anwar al-Attar, one of the 15 medics. She spoke while holding the couple's young daughter.
The truth will not come, and the wound will keep bleeding. The pain is still the same. The loss grows day by day. Every time this girl gets older and asks me where her father is, and I can't answer her, the wound grows deeper. He was the pillar and support of the family. He's gone. The investigation won't achieve anything.
Israel said it would not investigate 3 other attacks on Gaza that killed 8 workers from World Central Kitchen and Doctors Without Borders. And Israel made no mention of thousands of other incidents where Palestinian civilians were killed by Israeli forces. For more, we go to Los Angeles, where we're joined by Sharif Abdul Quddus, award-winning journalist and the Middle East North Africa editor at Dropsite News. He was correspondent on the Fault Lines documentary The Night Won't End on Al Jazeera English that investigated the killings of civilians in Gaza by the Israeli military. Sharif, welcome back to Democracy Now! Can you talk about why these investigations have been announced, why these 2 particular cases, and why now?
Well, so firstly, these were 5 incidents out of apparently 150 that were reviewed by the Israeli military. I think it's not a coincidence that all 5 of these were among the most widely covered incidents of the war. They were documented in real time, and they were very prominent cases, mostly massacres. We don't know what happened to the other 145 incidents that they apparently reviewed. Now, the 2 incidents that you mentioned that are being referred to military police for criminal investigations, this seems to be nothing more than political theater, to be honest. As numerous Palestinian and international human rights groups have documented for years, Israel's internal investigations into the criminal conduct of its own soldiers are fundamentally flawed, and they can't be regarded as credible mechanisms for accountability, and they instead function primarily to shield Israel from international tribunals or prosecution abroad, rather than delivering any kind of justice. The Israeli human rights group B'Tselem has called these investigations a sham. It's called them, quote, a legal iron dome to protect Israeli soldiers from international accountability. And let's remember that since the genocide began, Israel claims to have referred over 1,000 incidents involving its soldiers to its fact-finding assessment mechanism. And, it says it's opened dozens of criminal investigations. There is no comprehensive public accounting of the status or outcome of these investigations. There was a review by the NGO Action on Armed Violence of over 50 reported Israeli military probes. It found that 88% had been either closed or that a finding of wrongdoing had been closed without a finding of wrongdoing, and they remained under review. Only one of them resulted in a prison sentence. So, I think this is a lot more political theater, and it may be coming as Israel is coming under.
Oh, yeah. Just theater. No, it's just theater. Ooh, two-faced. Yeah, baby. Oh, I'm crying so much. Ooh, 2 heads are better than 1. Yeah, baby. Just after you're exposed to lethal radiation. This is when you go psychotic, when you watch 24/7 screen. Oh, yeah. Ooh, I like that. Ooh. Ooh. Ooh, yes. Oh, it feels so good. Ooh. Ooh, baby. Ooh, baby. Ooh, baby. Lenses. Ooh. Ooh, there's my inside. There's my inside self. Ooh. Ooh. There's my little devil. Oh. Ooh, yes. Yes. Aren't you happy with your government? Yes. Aren't you happy with we control the horizontal, we control the vertical. Ooh, yeah, baby. Ooh, there's your Buddha, 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 Buddha. I don't know what I'm doing. There's 2 of me there. Ooh. Oh, that's nice. That's nice. How do we get back? Makeup. What's makeup? Okay, back. That's how I did it. Okay, so how do you like that? What's going on in your world, right? There's 2 of you there. Hope you're good. I'm very good. It's the other owl. Okay. Lane Company. Yes, the other owl. Okay. So, today is just like every other day. You heard Amy's Democracy Now! Going on and on and on. And meaning what we have to do is take control, and not in some political, what's his name? Graham's sister took his place, and they asked her a simple question about geopolitics, and she goes, "What's that? I'm really not informed." Well, that's pretty much like every senator, every congressman. The only thing that they're informed about is how many Benjamins are in that envelope. And what are those pictures they have of me doing with that donkey or that elephant? Boy, those elephants got big woohoos. Anyway, and this is no different than you go look at the United States for its last 250 years. They talk about the Epstein class, where our founding fathers were the Epstein class. Where did George Washington get sworn in as the first president? On the steps of the New York City Stock Exchange. That's exactly what it said. And there was a bronze statue of him up until the 80s. And when kleptocracy really took off, they replaced the bronze George with a gold cow. Yep. Now I think they have an Easter bunny, right? So, I mean, this war is basically why it's going on for so long, is that Donald Trump every week plays the market and the bond, all the markets, and he shorts them, he buys them low and sells them high. It's, you're not supposed to have that office to line your pockets with gold. And that's what he's got gold all over the walls and every place else in the White House, because when he leaves, he's just going to have them take all of that gold off, take it down to the basement. That's why they're building a gold smelter in the basement there, right? So, yeah, good luck with that. Can you talk about Brazil and the people you met? Oh, yeah, I can do that. Okay, you want a story? This is a good story, right? So it starts out with me in the Lower East Side, right? And I'm sitting in my comfy, burnt out tenement apartment, and my phone, where I lived, no one had a phone because the phone lines to that neighborhood were gone, right? Because there was nobody there. Everything was redlined, The buses didn't run anymore. If you went shopping, you had to carry your food like 20 blocks. I wonder what all that stuff back there is. Anyway, and what did I do with my coat? Oh, there it is. Anyway, so there I was, and everything I had, I got up the street, right? And, so here's one of my Lower East Side paintings. Here's a lady who started the Living Theater, and that's her boyfriend. That is the most powerful political person in the United States, from Maine to the Mississippi. And there I am, her puppy dog. And okay, here's a good picture. So here is where this is the place I was in, the burnt out apartment, right? The soiree zone. Anyway. I like how this thing totally puts a hole in my head right there, right? So anyway, puts an eye down there. I think this is capturing my real self. Anyway, so I'm sitting on this Barca lounger that's on a plywood box. It was red leather. It was very comfy. And I'm sitting there, and the yellow phone rings. Anyway, so I got a phone number, and I called it in, and I had a phone number before, so Ma Bell knew that I was a past client. Anyway, so they send a guy, and this guy is not, well, he might even been in the IBEW, but it was another guy I knew from the union world, and he drove up in a truck, and he said, I want to go see my girlfriend, and get in the truck. So I get in the truck, and he takes me 3 blocks away, and he goes to one of the little phone things where everyone's phone wire goes into the main line that goes back to the frame, and anyway, he goes, this is you right here, these 2 little screws here, so run your wire all the way, and he took me back to where I was, and basically gave me all the tools I needed, like a blue phone and you name it, a signal generator, and about 20 miles of wire, and about 10 different phones, right? And they were all Princess phones too. So I basically, okay, and he took off to go see his girlfriend, and he gave me the 2 codes to call in on that little blue phone to the frame, to, if I had any problems, they could run from the frame to those 2 little screws. So I basically, do that, and I get a bunch of kids, And I said, okay, here's a box of wire, run it from here over that building, over that building, over that building, across the street, tie it up good, and get it into my apartment, like 3 blocks down. So they were doing that while I was fooling around with the signal, and then I kind of hooked it up, and So anyway, long story short, I have a phone, yellow phone, and the phone rings, and I get up, and basically the person answers the phone. I mean, I answer the phone. That's the person, and the voice on the other side is a very clipped, very educated, very European voice, and it says, "This is Sensei Owl Bob." And I said, "Who wants to know?" And he goes, "No, he didn't say that." He goes, "Do you know Michael Keene?" And I said, that motherfucker owes me $500. Click. Ring, ring, ring. "Do you know Michael Keene?" I said, that motherfucker owes me $500. So then I basically hang up again. Ring, ring, ring. He goes, "Don't hang up on me. I just want to know if you know that person, because that person told us that you brought the Xenon disco to life." I said, "And so what?" "Well, we want you to do a disco in a town called Buzios. It's a tourist town, very high end. Buzio. Go look that up into Google. Buzio, Brazil. It's on the East Coast." Anyway, so I basically go, "Okay, I'm listening." And he goes, "I have just deposited $1,500 into your checking account." So I have no idea who this guy is and that he could do that. This is 1980 something, 3, 4, around there, maybe 5. Anyway, so 4 or 5. Anyway, so I go, okay. And he goes, "And you can, go to, and that is our bank, and we have also got you a first-class airplane ticket to Rio, right? And we have, another $1,500 in cash for you, right? And the $1,500 or whatever it was in my checking account, that's just there for talking to us on the phone. The ticket and the thing is your travel expenses, and we will give you, a tremendous amount of money if you do this for us, when you're here, and you'll have a great time. Boozy is a great town." Anyway, I wasn't doing anything, didn't have a girlfriend, didn't have a relationship. The homestead thing was kind of putting along. I had done everything I was kind of going to do, at least at that stage. I came back later, and we took over more buildings. And anyway, so I get on the airplane, and you have to know what Michael Keene. Michael Keene is a really amazing kind of create highlights. Okay, let's see what that does. Okay, turn the thing off. Right, back to here. The doctor. Oh yes. So anyway, I basically went to, so Michael, right? Michael's mother was Nelson Rockefeller's executive assistant. So that's where Michael came from. And Michael was a great artist, he was just a great guy. But man, you didn't want to give him any money. The $500 I gave him was like, I would usually give him $5. I need money. Can you give me 100? Here's 5, right? You give me the 5 back, I'll give you. So anyway, over the years, those $5, ran up to be $500. And, I'd never held it against Michael. I told him so. I said, Michael, I love you, and that's nothing. That's $5 over, 10 years. I'm not, our friendship isn't based on that. So, anyway, so the guy on the phone just kept talking to me about this club and Michael, and I said, so how do you know Michael? He goes, well, he's, came to Buzios, and he sings and he dances and he makes art and he has sex with all the women, and it was somewhat good for business, but then he got to be, a pain in the ass. And that was Michael. And so I always stayed 10 feet away from him. Whenever I had him living in my, he had no place to live. I put him in my place. My 96th Street boat basin, floating apartment. I had that for 2 years. And again, I was going to leave, and Michael had nowhere to live, so I said, here, Mike, it's only $96, right? And you get a parking lot, right? So, and the $96 covers your water and your electric. So, so he did. And that's what kind of good friend. And I came back, and he was still there, so I had a place to crash, and then I went away, and when I came back, and I went down there, the guy who ran the boat basin, he goes, Al, come here. I said, what? I said, well, he goes, your apartment, Michael sold to some clown and left. And, and he also sold the 2 parking lot spots in the parking lot, because if you had a yacht there, you got 2 parking spots. And in Manhattan, parking spot anywhere is worth something. Anyway, Michael would do shit like that all the frigging time. And he sold my boat. This boat banged into my little houseboat once. And I went out there. It was this big, long fish. It's like Long Island, fisherman's boat. It's like 28 feet, 30 feet long. And you rowed it. It had no motor. It's old. It had a sail, right? And it just banged into I tied it up because I had a place I could have a boat. And so, Michael did all that. And he goes, and he split town because he did all this with the mob, and he took a bunch of money from them. And then, they found out they couldn't get what, and so that mob was after Michael. Mob was connected to this lawyer guy, and they were going to kill him. And the lawyer guy, the only thing that saved Michael's ass is that he knew me, and he knew my phone number, my private bat line. And the lawyer called me up, and he explained the whole story. I said, yeah, I know, Michael's really a jerk. And he says, well, do you want us to kill him? I said, no, don't kill him. I think in the earlier stage when I kept hanging up and he kept saying Michael's name, I said, just kill the fucker, right? And I don't know about that phone. And then the guy, well, we'll do that if you really want us to. And I said, no, don't kill him. I said, and so I said, what do you want me to do? And he explains what he wants me to do and how much money. He's just going to give me like $5,000, right? Because we're having this conversation, money in my checking account. And not only that, they put the money in my checking account as a CD. And it was a special kind of CD that was getting like 35%. It was mind-boggling, right? So, I said, I got nothing else to do. This should be interesting. So I got my passport, went down and got on the airplane, and it was my ticket, first class, from New York to Hawaii. No, it wasn't Hawaii. I don't know how I got there, but it was a long airplane ride with a stop in between. So anyway, I get out, and everyone on the airplane had 2 seats, their seat and a seat that they had like piles of VCRs and microwave ovens, right? And when they went through, I'm waiting online to go through customs, and I have nothing. That's my modus operandi if I'm going to take a long trip. I have nothing, right? Just the clothes on my back and my passport and my wallet. and a little day pack. That's about it, right? So, clean pair of socks, another pair of shirt and pants, shorts, maybe some sandals. Anyway, so going, online, and all these guys are doing is they go through customs. The guy looks at the passport. He goes, anything to, say you brought into the country. And this guy's got like a trolley with like 50 VCRs on it. And he hands one of the VCRs to the man behind the desk, and the guy puts it over in a pile of VCRs, and there's a pile of microwaves. And, he hits it and hits green light, door opens, the guy goes and pushes the trolley. And anyway, so it comes to me, I got nothing. It's pretty obviously, I got nothing to declare. I give him my passport, he looks at that. He goes, you got another, show him that. He goes, do you have any money to stay here? I show him the money I have, right? And I got some plastic, and he goes, red light. And these guys come and take me away and bring me into a room, and sit me down. Right? So, and they leave. And this has happened to me a number of times. And the same thing freaking happened to me. About 15 minutes later, this lady comes in with a trolley, and would you like coffee? Do you want espresso? How about a little Nutella? So that was, I got a couple of cookies and a nice espresso, and I'm sitting there chewing on the cookies, and then the door opens, and this guy comes in. It's the voice, the lawyer. And so he apologized. I should have met you at the gate. I'm sorry. I was got here a little late, and I had my chauffeur waiting, but he seemingly couldn't get you. Anyway, so we walked out. We got in the limousine, and the chauffeur's this little guy, and he's got the chauffeur outfit from his waist up. The white shirt, the little black tie, little studs, the black jacket. But he's got these crappy shorts under, below his belly, and just kind of these indigenous moccasins, and he's got like welder's glasses, right? And a big, thick, really welder's glasses, right? So he opens the door. We get in. The guy's got little munchies and some champagne. And we get out, we get on the highway, we get on the main drag that goes on the East Coast, right on the coast. There's the ocean, here's the road. And we're going up and down and up and down and up and down. And as we go up, the big trucks are like slow way down, so they're doing maybe 10 miles an hour getting up this hill. And the guy in the chauffeur, he's got a Mercedes limo. He pedaled to the metal, was zipping by these trucks, boom, 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 and we're getting at the top. I'm looking at the trucks; they're all lined up. There's no space, right? And on either side of the road, really, it's just jungle or cliff. And we get top, and there is a truck heading towards us, and this guy very calmly just zings between two trucks with that much space between the front and the back. And then once we go over the hill, he gets out and zips by the trucks and gets on. Anyway, so that ride takes us about 2 hours, and I'm already not feeling any pain, because as soon as we got out of town and we're on the road, the guy pulls out some spliffs, and here, I have one. So we're smoking away. Great cigar and great lamb's breath, and ooh baby, and champagne and little yummies. And he's telling me the story about how he and the madame had come to New York and gone to all the discos in town. And everyone they went to, like Wetlands and Tunnel Club and Studio 54 and what other club they mentioned, and I don't remember. But they were most impressed by Xenons, and so they always asked, and so they were high end, so they always talked to either the manager or the owner, and would have cocktails and say, who did this? And my name would come up, right? So, and they told the whole story. I'm an artist. I'm this. I'm a that. Art party ringleader, cultural provocateur, all the above. And so anyway, so he's telling me the whole story about that, and I said, "Who's the man?" Well, she owns us all. She's like Jabba the Hutt. I mean, really. And you see all these new Star Wars where the Hutts are a character, especially the Mandalorian, right? Anyway, so she's like that, right? And when I go see her, it's just like straight out of the first thing where, or like the Force fights back, where Luke shows up in a black outfit to get what's his name, Solo, out of carbonite. Anyway, so there are all these people, sycophants around, and it's like a courtesan, right? And the lawyer brings me in, and she's sitting up on pillows, just eating these squiggly things, and he goes, "Never look her in the eye, and don't say anything about her weight, and just look, demonstratively towards your shoes." And so anyway, I'm in there like looking at everything that's going on, and she says something to me in Portuguese, and I go, "What?" And I look right in her eyes, and I said, "My God, what are you?" But, not like scared, but just amazed, right? And somewhat amused. And so she starts to, "I am the madam." And then she's, "I'm sure the lawyer has said everything that needs to be said." And I said, "You mean this guy over here?" "Yes, the doctor," right? Well, everyone who was in her circle was the doctor, right? So he was the doctor of law. I mean, that's what, when you got a law degree, you get a doctorate of law, basically. Anyway, so she says, "We have land on the east side, and we want to develop it. It's this beautiful beach, and there's a cliff, and this, and that, and the boom, 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 and we have a place for you to stay, and you don't have to worry about money or security." And she kind of waves, and this guy comes straight out of Central Casting of like the chief of police, like got this crazy uniform with all kinds of gold buttons and medals, and he's got 2 pearl-handled like gold 45s, and I mean they look like kids' guns, right? But nice ones. Anyway, so and this is the chief of the police. He will always protect you. You belong to me, and everything that I own, he protects. And I go, okay. I said, "Well, you don't quite own me. I'm more like a consultant, right?" And she goes, "Oh, like, yeah, good luck with that, buddy." So, I go, okay. So the lawyer and the chief of police and I walk out, and so the chief, gets right in to the limousine. He doesn't wait for the guy to open the door for him. He just opens it because he knows it's air conditioned, there's booze, and there's drugs in there. So he's gonna go, and some yummies. So he's gonna go in it. He said that when we were walking down the hall. I haven't had lunch yet. We get to the thing. He jumps in there, and we drive. We come. So you come off the main road. You come around, and Buzio's a peninsula, sticks out into the Atlantic. You come around, and there's all these farms over here, and animals and stuff growing, and it's really beautiful, right? And the road comes around, and it comes down this hill, and up on this other hill over here on the backside of where the town is, looking out over the ocean, and down below is the town. Are all these like castles, literal castles. And over at one corner is this big white building. What's that? Oh, that's the hospital. Okay, is that for everybody? Oh, no, that's just the hospital. Okay, so, after we get in a limo and we come around the hospital and go down and into town, and again, you come into town, and there are these nice houses on this side of that road, and the town, which is this beautiful, long, 5-10 mile, lucky highway, and it's a cobblestone, and it has it's like a big avenue, right? and it goes just one way, just this thing this way. And on the back side, and on this side are all these hotels and stores and restaurants and everything tourist and you name it. And they're these kind of little malls almost, but they kind of go in, and there are offices and other stores and things of that nature. And then at the end are like, it's not the end, but the end of that commercial section is like clubs, right? And then there's usually a road that connects on the other side, and that's to get out of town, right? And then up that hill are where all the nice homes, like where maybe the lawyer lives and the police chief lives, or I have no idea. I never went to their house, even though I was there a year and a half, and I went to see where they lived. Anyway, so we're going down the main road, and it's beautiful. I mean, there's all these cabanas on the beach and umbrellas and girls basically naked, sunbathing, and guys in little white waiters' jackets with trays bringing drinks, and they had all these cabanas that you could get dressed in and do fun in, and they were right on there. There were like these little kind of where they had what's that stuff called? It's Italian ice cream. Anyway, so I'm just checking this all out. I said, boy, this is really nice. And people are walking on the sidewalks, and they're very wide, and so it's really amazingly beautiful. And this is, like I said, 1983, 84. And so I basically, maybe 84, 85. It was after we had won the Shawam conflict. But anyway, so it was before I went to Cornell. So somewhere between 85 and 88. I'm not quite sure, but about a year and a half. So we're going down. So we come out of that touristy thing, and we kind of go out. And again, the road kind of that other road that goes that way kind of joins up, and so it's now the road going out of town and going around the peninsula side. And this is where you see how big we came from the top down around, and yeah, it was like 5 miles from the main road and coming into town. But this other road went all the way around this gigantic beach. It must have been 20 miles long. Just beautiful, big, unbelievable beach. And ocean, beach, that's right, from ocean to jungle, probably, I don't know, 200 yards, easy. And then thick mangrove jungle, right? A lot of streams and waterfalls and stuff coming up the mountain, all that kind of groovy stuff, right? So anyway, so we kind of before we get to that, there is, at the thing comes around like this, over here is like a fishing village. That's probably what was there to begin with, along with the farms and the fishing. That was kind of probably what it was. And there's lots of little houses, and there's all kinds of docks and boats pulled up on the beach, and nets everywhere just drying off, and we kind of, there's a road that goes into that, so we kind of go into that, and we drive through that, and it's like a little town unto itself, maybe 40, 50 homes that we're driving through, and we kind of come out the other side, and there's this kind of jungle road, and it kind of goes to the other side. So anyway, so we kind of drive that thing. We get to this point, right? And there's this big waterfall coming down, and there's a river there. But we're right at where that 20-mile beach is, of that backside of that peninsula. You can't really get to it. I mean, this is as far as you can get to it, right? And I thought, whoa, that's pretty impressive. And they said, see, up there, and so, so there's ocean, beach, mangrove jungle, and then the mountain just goes whee straight up, and you can see that, forest, then it's kind of cleared. You can see this kind of line going around, right? And that's the road outside. And it goes to the main highway, kind of, right? And at that time, we didn't go up there. But he said, well, we want to fix that road, and we want to have that the main entrance, because we're going to fix the road all the way out to the main road, so things can just come straight off the main road and come into that place, and like deliver stuff. Because we're going to we're going to develop one side of that where the mangrove hits the mountain, and make it not like heavy industry, but industry. The beach is going to be even more groovy than back there because of the mountains and the waterfalls, and we're going to put gambling casinos and da-da-da-da-da. And the anchor of this is the nightclub. We want you to build a nightclub. So I'm going, okay. So we turn around, and all the time, the chauffeur guy, he's wearing these, and I say, so why does that guy wear welding goggles? What's the story with that? And he goes, well, he's blind. And I said, and he's your chauffeur? He goes, well, he really can't see, but his other senses, or even, I said, yeah, but, he's in a Mercedes thing with air conditioning, and what other senses? And he goes, well, he's very sensitive. And that's all he said at that moment. Anyway, basically what that guy was a genetically engineered kubajaba, like some kind of sci-fi. If he saw him at night, he'd have fangs and wings, right? So, but during the day, he was all covered up, except for his knobby knees and his sandals. And so he turns around, which I couldn't believe he could, because the thing wasn't even a road. It was like maybe 6 feet wide, and there was gooey everything on either side. And but he turned that sucker around because it was a big, long Mercedes limousine. Anyway, so we go back into town, and we kind of cut into the neighborhood of fishermen, and we go down to the water and all the boats, and it's very picturesque and beautiful. And we stop off at this nice little house that's kind of overlooking all of that. But I mean, it's here, and then there's a path, and then there's all these frames that have nets on them, and started down to this dock, and there are a couple of boats there, and there are a bunch of boats like are pulled up onto the sand. That is all, and and that house is pretty high, but the other houses that were closer to the water were on stilts, and so there was a fishing house there on stilts, right? And so I don't go and look at it. I just kind of take in everything as I can see. And we walk up to this nice, very, Portuguese architecture, back from the imperial days. It's kind of not a mud hut, but, brick hut covered in a stucco, and it's very, Mediterranean, let's say. And so, knock, 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 and this pretty girl comes to the door, and basically goes, "Oh, doctor," and he goes, "Maria," and they're speaking in English. Police chief not so good in English. Okay, he can kind of speak English, but anyway. So so she goes, "Is this the man you were pointing to me that you were talking about?" And he goes, "Yes." And he goes, "So we need to." He goes, "I thought you would have moved out by now." So she said, "Well, you told me 2 weeks ago this was going to happen, then I didn't hear a word from you, so I didn't know whether it was going to happen. But I've informed everyone, and we're going to move out to the little fishing house." And the guy goes, "Well, that's good. Right. So we'll go away." And I go, and he goes, "Come on in." And so it goes in, and there's a foyer, and there's like a hallway this way, and there's the kitchen over here. And you go, there's another kind of longish hallway, and you can tell there's a bunch of bedrooms, and then into a big open space that, has goes out to a patio. I mean, that big living space is like, the outside is the inside, it's the outside, right? So, anyway, so I'm looking at it, and the doctor goes, "Does this is this okay?" I said, "Yeah, this is great." And there were a lot of people there. There was her, Maria, and then about 10 kids between the age of like 2 and 10, and then there were a bunch of people that were from the ages of 14 to 30. So there was about, I don't know, 15 people, give or take, and I said, so you're going to move all these people out into that little shack down there? He goes, yes. I go, let's go take a look at the shack. So Maria, me, and this little kid who looked like Dondi from the comic strips, and so he was calling me doctor. I said, yes. And he goes, you are the man coming to bring us, charity and prosperity. And I said, boy, you guys are really, I have a hard bill to fit here. So anyway, we walk down there and we go into it's one room, right? And it's really funky. I mean, no one's been in there forever. It's got spider webs everywhere. It's just like funk, right? And I look around and go, okay. And it was really nice because it was out in the water and had a little dock, had a little boat. And it actually had a little motor, I didn't see a lot of motorboats, but this one had a little motor. Watch Danny. So anyway, so we walk back, and the police chief and the lawyer say goodbye and say, well, they'll take care of you. It'll be all fine and all good. I said, no problem. And so they ride away, and you could tell, mom, grandma and grandpa, who are it, and then the other adults are like weeping, right? And I say to Maria, does anybody here, you and who's this little guy here? It looks like Dondi, and she giggles. She goes, it's my, younger brother. I go, okay. I know, she said, that's my uncle. I said, what? Anyway, that's another story. I basically go, no, you know what? Because everyone's starting to pack up their stuff, and they're sniffling and crying, and I go, I'm just tired. What I want is, because you guys are going to take forever to move down there, and then, then I got to move in, and no. What I want you guys is, there's enough of you people, I'm sure you could go down there and clean that thing out, clean it up, and put a bed, a table, and a chair. That's all I need, right? And so, she brings me over. She goes, this is my uncle, and I called him Dondi. Barrera was his name, I think. Forget what his name was, but he looked like he was like, 6 years old, but he was a midget, dwarf, little person, follow the yellow brick road. He was that, right? And so he never told me how old he was. No one ever told me whether he was a kid or a grown-up, because she kept saying, that's my uncle. And so, that guy goes, I am going to be your right leg, right? And little did he know how bad my right leg was. But anyway, so I go, I'm going to need an assistant. And so I said, well, I'm going to just call you Dondi. Oh, in the comic strips, yes, Dondi, yes, that's me. Well, we're talking, and so he is translating. First we talked to the matriarch, and she's just hugging and kissing me. Oh, let me give you, and they put out a spread for me, and they're all sitting there, and I'm eating, and they're not. I said, come on. I said, oh, this ain't our time to eat, but you're hungry. You've had a long trip. And that's when I first had my first cup of Caprina, which is crushed ice, lemon jello. It's kind of like lemon jello with LSD in it, and a lot of sugar, and really crushed ice, right? Put those things together, mix it up, and serve it to you. So it's kind of like a slushy, but I just had 2 sips of it, and I was like, whoa, right? So bottom line is, I am enjoying this, and all of a sudden, Maria comes back and said, "Oh, doctor, come and take a look at this." And so, we kind of go and take a look at it, and it's beautiful. It's a beautiful bed, brand new, better than the bed I'm sleeping on, and a nice chair, like a couple of rockers that are out on the porch right over the water, and it's facing west, so I'm going to see a beautiful sunset every day, and it's out past that edge of the peninsula, so the light is going to come in those windows, so the morning light will be quite interesting. Anyway, so, and I look at everything, and they give me a Coleman lantern. I know how to use that, and a bunch of candles that are like in little things that you can't knock it off and set the house on fire, and a couple of kerosene lanterns, right? And so we do that, and Grandma comes and brings me. I don't know if you've ever seen it, but in North Africa, it's a white shirt that it goes down to your knees. It's like a long, long white shirt. It's usually linen or silk or something very comfortable, very light. And that's what you kind of wear at this time of day. So she basically came down and said, "Here, put this on." Down. He said, "Here, And there was a bathroom, but all it was a hole in the floor, and the crap went into the ocean, right? So, and they had a cistern, so the water would, rain on the roof, collect in the cistern, and by the, there was a kitchen thingamajig, and they had a Coleman gasoline, white gas stove, and basically I said, okay. They had a nice espresso pot. That's all I needed. And they also brought a couple of jugs of like distilled water, right? It said distilled, right? And he said, the water from the cistern is okay, but it's, not as clean as this, Sometimes our air here gets dirty. We're out in the middle of the ocean, it's like, So, I go, fine. So she gives me the shirt. I kind of go into, it was one big room, but like I said, there was a place over here where there was a toilet seat, and you crapped into the ocean. Anyway, I went in there, and she goes, "Take your clothes." He said, "Take your clothes off." So I take my clothes off. And she says, "I just want to, clean these up for you." And so I put the nice white shirt on, and they take off, and I'm exhausted, and the sun is going down. And so they have a nice little pitcher of Capa Caprinas, and I kind of have a sip of that. And so in the morning, I wake up, and on the table is this beautiful frittata, and these great little cinnamon something fruity cakes, and a bunch of fruit of every kind, of pineapple, avocado, you name it, every kind of sliced, and this frittata and fried bacon, just woo, and a fish, just a little protein there, and there it was, really nice, and a really nice pot of good dark, French roast coffee, right, and some cream. And everything that needed to be cool was cool, and everything that needed to be warm was warm, and everything that needed to be hot was hot. So I'm eating away. And then I noticed Dottie has been standing there the whole freaking time. And I didn't notice him. He didn't say a word. He was just standing there. And I looked, I said, "Dottie, what are you doing here?" He goes, "Well, I was waiting for you to wake up, and I brought this for you. Maria, she had to go to work, but we laid out your breakfast for you." And my grandma, my mom, because I was called her grandma, made this for you. She made me a white suit. It's pretty, a linen white suit. Pants, jacket, vest, and I had a silk shirt. She sewed them all. And she took my clothes to get what size I was and it fit me like a glove. And in the back of the coat, that's why I had this coat I have, it had these vents that the air would go through and take whatever heat I was making away. Anyway, so, you know, he goes, try that on. So I try it on, and he goes, you do look like the doctor, more than any of the other doctors. Because everybody there who was working there was, the only guy they didn't call doctor was the chief of police. They just called him chief. But anyway, but they didn't, you know, the people in charge, the peons never talked to them, first off, right? They didn't address them. They just kind of looked at their shoes. So, you know, I go out and I see the police chief with a couple of his guys walking down the path from the house up there and came down. And the chief said, I thought you were going to live in the house up there. I said, no, I couldn't put those people out, you know. And I said, come, take a look at this. And he looks around and goes, ooh, this is nice. And I said, yeah. So he says, well, you're very lucky. I said, why is that? He goes, well, you know, when the higher-ups tell you what it is, you're not supposed to, you know, put forth your own way of doing it. You're supposed to do it the way they do it. Obviously, they realize for you to do what they want you to do, you're going to have to do it your own way, so they're giving you a lot of latitude, buddy. So, I'm here to be your protector. I said, what do I need to be protected from? Look at all these people. No. He goes, no, you don't understand. You are valued commodity. The people here, yes, maybe won't do anything bad to you because they know they'll be dead, but you need to be protected. And so he basically goes, come with me. So we go up, and he's got a police car, right? It's like a Valiant, you know, like the Chrysler thing, and it's like a cartoon car. It was white, black, green, and red. It's like, I think it was kind of the Brazilian colors, and it had stars on it, and it had he says it has a radio phone and a CB, right? Police phone, and you got the lights and everything, and it was really nice. And so I said, okay. So I said, Dondi, get in the driver's seat. And so he does, right? And basically, he just can get his feet on the pedals and see over the steering wheel. I said, so do you know how to drive, Dondi? He goes, oh, yes, I can drive. And so I go, okay, Chief, thanks a lot. So he goes, do you want one of these guys to always be with you? I said, no. I think Dondi, I said, can you give Dondi a gun? He goes, no, I can give you a gun. Dondi can't have a gun. No. But you can have a gun. Big man needs a gun. And he pulls one of his gold guns and hands it to me. I said, no, I don't need a gun. And you're right, he doesn't need a gun either, right? So, because if I'm going to leave this neck of the woods, I'm sure you guys are going to be with me. So, and being around here, I don't think he goes, pretty much you're right? So, he goes, but when we start construction, we'll have people there for protection. I said, whatever you need, that's your bailiwick, your security. I'm just here to have a good time. So, he goes, oh, we'll have a good time. So he goes, okay, so we have this other man who, he's not quite the doctor. We call him the engineer. So he fixes our roads. He fixes our electric. He fixes our everything. He has a crew. He has a facility that's like a big warehouse of stuff and vehicles and tools. And, so he's going to take, here he is. You and him, this is Ralph. And hey, Ralph. And so we get in there, and he kind of speaks, and he says, I understand English well, speaking it not so good. I said, well, Dondi is great, so between the three of us, not a problem. He goes, seems right. So he becomes, I call him Spock, he's my second in command. So number two, I don't want to be number two, I'm number one. Okay, you're number one, but you're Spock. He goes, ooh, Star Trek, yes, I'm Spock. Anyway, so the police go this way, and the policeman says, "Oh, come by the police. When do you think you're going to be finished doing what you're doing?" I said, "Well, what time's it now?" He goes, 8 a.m. I said, "Okay." Had breakfast. I have my nice new suit on. Got Dundee and Spock, and we'll come have lunch. How about 1 p.m.? That should be more than enough time. That's probably your hacienda time. It was, "Oh, yes, not a place." And they know where the police station is. We'll go to Sammy Shoe. And he says, "I'm going to introduce you to the town, to all the people, all the people have businesses and restaurants and et cetera, et cetera." I said, "Okay, sounds like a plan." So I said, "So where is Michael?" He goes, "Oh." I said, "Is he in jail?" He goes, "Oh." I said, "Is he going to come back?" He goes, "Oh, he'll be back in a day or two." "Okay, you haven't killed him." "No, we haven't killed him." "Have you deformed him?" "Oh, no, we need him looking the pretty boy that he is." And I said, "Okay." So Dondi, me, and Spock, first and this car is a 4-wheel drive kind of SUV before SUV. I mean, I called it a Valiant, but it wasn't. I can't even describe it. It looked like a turtle. It's 4-wheel drive, looked like a turtle. It looked like a soccer mom van. That's what it looked like. The doors opened. They didn't slide. But it looked like a turtle, right? But it could go through anything. And it was like a good 6 inches, 8 inches off the ground, had big knobby tires. It could go through anything. So, and it had one of those, cables in the front, and had one in the back too, so you could pull each. So you could get out of anything in this vehicle, and it had a radio, radio phone, Motorola could call up people. So anyway, so we go first down through the fishing village and I said, "So this is probably going to be the road, service road, going into town, right? Because look at, this whole property. Yes, there's this big waterfall that's coming down here. I think we should build a ancillary to the nightclub." And basically, the guy goes, "Yeah, that's good." He goes, "Base of operations." I said, "Yeah, exactly." I said, "So you're in the military?" He goes, "Oh, yeah, so it's in the military. So where I learned all my, how to build things." And I said, "So we're going to have to build a bridge here, right? And then we're going to have to, sturdy this whole little marshy area that we can build our ancillary, thing." And he goes, "Okay, not a problem." And so he's taking notes and figuring out what we're going to need, et cetera, et cetera. And I said, "So I noticed that road that goes through everyone's thing then goes onto this road. And I noticed that over there were kind of, nice stand of old growth trees. And actually, that if we could just take, 20 meters into the woods, we could build a road over there that kind of shortens, instead of having to go through the whole town and then pop out over here. We can just, that little bit that's maybe, half a kilometer." And he goes, "Oh, you know the metric system?" I said, "Yeah, I know the metric system." He goes, "Good, that'll make it easy." So anyway, he goes, "Yes, we could do that. We can do that." I said, "And you know what? If you do that, there's going to need some culverts, and that stream is coming there, so you're going to probably have to build a little bridge. So you do that, and it'll give me a look at what you think. It'll give me an aesthetic look, right?" And I said, I wanted to kind of go along with that Portuguese, European aesthetic that's, the tourist neck of town. He goes, "Okay." So he we do that, and then we drive all the way around the other road that's down, and it's again, like a logging road from a certain point, and it goes kind of almost all the way, 20 miles of up there. I said, so, where is, here we are right at this thing, and I'm looking at the whole curve. It's like a cliff, right? And there's 2 waterfalls, and again, that road kind of goes over that hill, and the beach kind of goes over there, and right over there, it looks like it's not a cliff. And so maybe we make a road there and fix this road up here so it doesn't slide off the mountain first, right? So we got a nice, good road. Wherever the water's coming down, we build a bridge. And again, I can see what you guys can do by doing that. And he goes, okay. And I said, so where do you think? So our base of operations will be over at this part of the thing, and I'm thinking that our first big super whoopee, the club, we're going to call it the club until we get a good name. Are we going to call it Xenons? I said, nah, Xenons is Xenons. I don't think we should, and most people don't even know that. I mean, Madame, she's really hot to trot on that. We'll figure another name for it. But right now, base of operations, and then the club. And he goes, okay. So I said, so I want, well, you're going to be building this thing and that thing, and the culverts and the bridges wherever needed, and those are going. I want you to build them not as a temporary thing, but as the foundation for what's going to go on top of it. He goes, yes, I understand completely. So he's taking notes and doing that. And I said, okay, so I go, how long will that take? And he goes, not long, soon. I said, okay, soon, okay. That's good enough for me. So I think that's it. That's a wrap, right? So we get out of there, and we drop him off at, downtown, wherever he wants to go. And Dondi's still driving. And he's like, if you're like driving next to us, all you can see is the top of Dondi's little head, right? And so, anyway, so we drive in, and we go to, we first go to the doctor, and he goes, I heard about everything that you've done so far. And he goes, these are all things unexpected. We had no idea that you, I said, listen, that's all I got, you want me to do this thing? It's, this is how I do it. It's kind of like magic. I need people to be excited about what we're doing. And so you treat all the people here, that you call serfs, like slaves, right? No one can get anything. They can't get a leg up, right? Look, the people they were the best fishing family in town. They owned their own boats. They had their nice little empire. And you kicked them out of their nice house and made them go into the shithole. Now, I said, no, you stay. And so you've heard it from everybody. Before I even showed up, that's all around town. I'm sure it is, right? Everyone's going, oh, my God, this guy's not like, the Nazis who own us, So, and that'll be, well, we don't want to, rock the boat. No, you got to rock the boat a little bit, Not a lot, just enough. So these people feel like they're in the game. They got skin in the game. And you'll find 10 years down the line that this place will be so much better, and you'll be making so much money, and you won't have to worry about revolutions. So he goes, I am a student of history, and I hear what you're saying. So this will be a good experiment. We have other zones, and this is good. This is good, right? And the madam is, thinks she really loves you, buddy. Ooh. And the people above. And I go, the people above? Madam's not, no, Madam is just a figurehead. She's a poster girl, And she's scary, when she gets pissed off, baby. She eats you, right? So, I mean, literally. So, but she loves your ass. So, anyway. And now, again, he is being old European English, like diplomat, like Nazi, and because he's not native, that's for sure. And pretty much everyone, anyway. So, I said, I'm gonna Okay, that's good. I'm going to go see the police chief, and he is going to. He says, "Oh, I've already heard. We're going to go to Sammy Shoe, right?" And so, I called him the doctor. I had a lot of other nicknames for him too. So anyway, I used to call him Sir all the time. He liked that, but I did it in a buddy kind of way. Okay, sir. So anyway, so he liked the fact that I could do all of that, but I was totally 100% respectful, knew my place, blah, 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 right? So I then get, so where is Michael? He goes, he'll be back soon. He put Michael. Anyway, so, the lawyer, me, and Dondi leave his office, and Maria is working there. I said, Maria, good to see you, girl, and thanks for everything. You're the best. And doctor says, sir says, so Maria, she will always, you may not always be able to get me, but she has authority here. So you need anything between Dondi and Maria. These are your, people who will take care of everything. And, Sarge, that was my engineering guy, right? That's what I called him, Sarge. So anyway, I gave people nicknames because I couldn't remember their names. Couldn't even pronounce them in whatever language. And so anyway, we go over to Shamey Shoe. Shamey Shoe is a really nice restaurant / nightclub / bar. It's a real touristy thing. Big open space. There are no walls. It's like a tiki bar, but French. And the thing they make are crepes. Nothing else. Crepes. Every kind of crepe. Lobster crepe, steak crepe, any kind of crepe, your chocolate crepe, anything you want crepe, they made. And they're really, really, really good. And cocktails, right? And they had to be cocktails. They had to, be in a nice, martini glass with an umbrella, right? And they had a bandstand and a big dance floor, and it had tables, banquettes all around the edge, and it went all the way out and over that side over there. It went to the beach. It was kind of on the beach. So you could be out on the beach drinking your drink, and then come in and dance and be out on the beach, and and it had all these nice little cabanas that you could go in and do whatever you wanted to do. And they also had these really nice, hard to explain. It was like a really nice carpet on the beach, on the sand, with a big umbrella, right? And, and a kind of locker, right? And you rented those by the day, right? And so you could be out on the beach, The locker kind of had a thing, like a can in it that you could put drinks in, and they put ice in it, but you could put your pocketbook or whatever you want. Anyway, so they had a bunch of those scattered all over the place. So anyway, so I'm looking at all this, and that's kind of very nice. And so we go in, and they have this nice, like the boss's dining room. And again, it's half of it's inside the building, the other half is on the beach, and you can't quite easily get to that part because it's kind of roped off for the dignitary. So we go, and we're the only ones there, and so Shamey. And that's what I call him, because his name was Miguel, something in Portuguese, and I just used to call him Shamey, like Shaggy, right? And he was a little younger than me. His father was, he's German too, and his father was running the BMW factory. So there's two big cities. There's Rio and then the other one, where the industry is, where all the factories are, right? And so this kid has, lots of money, and he's smart. Daddy sent him off to schools. He's really smart in that he picks things he can be really passionate about and dump all his energy and make it successful. So this place is like a place to print money, the Shamey Shoe. Go look that up see if that's still on Google. Anyway, so met him and his girlfriend, wife, whatever, but she's gorgeous, like that kind of gorgeous. And she's smart too. So it's a partnership, right? And they had what was known as a polyamorous relationship. So they were in love with each other. They were always kissing, loving, but they were always screwing other people. It's hard not to. We were running the big nightclub, right? So, and this place never closes. They have different shifts. And I asked him, I said, what do you pay your people? And he goes, well, depends on what they do. And I said, he goes, we have a couple of chefs that I pay them $50 a week. I'm like, that's a lot of money. And he said the average income of everybody here, except us, is $3 a week. I said, okay. So I said, that means this nice waitress, she's getting like 3 cents a day or something. And he goes, a little bit more like 15 cents, but she gets tips. You can pay her whatever you want. That's why she's so good. And I said to him, that's right, tips to ensure proper service. He goes, yes, that's what it means. Anyway, and they show up on time. This is, they can take home, especially when Europeans are here, and which is all the time, they can take home $100 a week, more than the chef, right? But the chef comes out and speaks to all the people, so he can get a gratuity. It's all run by gratuities. So I go, okay. Do you take a cut of that? He goes, well, the police chief does, but I don't. I want the kindness and, I want the fellowship of my employees. So that's why you're a smart guy. So anyway, so he hit it off. He likes speaking Spanish. And so he and his wife were my first best friends, right? And what best friends to have, but the people who have the biggest, most fancy, nicest, groovy, where everybody wants to go, nightclub, restaurant, and other things in the back room. They had other stuff. But nothing was illegal there. Gambling, nothing was illegal there. You just had to pay your Vic. Anyway, so goes, you like to gamble? I said, nope, don't like to. I don't mind playing chess. I don't mind playing backgammon. I don't mind playing cards, but I see no sense. The game isn't making money because the house always wins. But we can play chess all day long, or checkers. I love checkers. And his wife, what was her name? She was really gorgeous. Again, another Portuguese name that I can't draw up out of my. I can't even remember half the women I was married to. So anyway, we have a nice little conversation, and then the lawyer, the doctor, takes me around, and we go into every shop and every restaurant, and because this guy is like the mayor, right, of this neck of the woods, but never having to run for anything. You know what I mean? Know what I mean, man? So we're having a good old time, and let's see how these French fries are. Well, not bad. So we meet everybody. And the Shamey shoe guy, Shamey, he had 3 or 4 other restaurants, like really high-end restaurants, like European high-end restaurants. And so we went and talked to those people, and his wife kind of ran those places. And so she was at the front end of those places. And they were all on the same little alley off the main road. That was the nightclub. Shamey Shoe was at the end, and these other things were on different sides. And 2 of the restaurants faced the beach, like the Shamey Shoe did. The other 3 restaurants were really super elegant on the inside, had air conditioning, had fans, had really high-end everything. Anyway, so doing that, and we meet everyone. And Sarge, as you drive in, where the hospital thing is, there's another thing kind of underneath it in the back, which was like not the city hall, but the place where the police cars were, the police station was, and the administrative entities were, and there was a little hospital there, right? Not like the big white one up just above it. So we go see everything. I talked to Sarge's back by now, and he's in his office. He's got his architect thing. He's got he's pulled up all of the deeds and whatever survey motifs they have of that beach, whatever documentation that they've had over the years, and the roads and what have done, and everything of documentation of where our project's going to be, right? So I go, okay. So we sit down, and he has his book, and he has pictures of the making of Casablanca, right? It was done on a sound stage. It was done on a shoestring, and so he has photos of the inside of Rick's, right? And he says, "What do you think of this as an aesthetic for the club?" I go, "Wow, yes, you hit it, but Sarge, this is like home run, baby." And we don't have to do the stupid crap we did for New York. That's New York. Let's do this. This fits much. It kind of fits the Portuguese kind of motif. The whole thing. We can bend it more towards that and give it an air of like elegance and old times. He goes, "That's what I was thinking." I said, "Okay, so that's really good. So let's take a look." So he's got this architect's table, right? And he's got the lamp on it, and he's got this board where he's got photos and stuff like pinned up there, and he's already started making drawings, right? So I said, he says, "I have people out marking things off for the road, and they're out there with, we're surveying the whole side of the mountain, right? All 20 miles by," he goes, "it's 4 miles from the ridge all the way down to the beach. It's 4 miles. So I'm going to survey everything, and to see that road that we're going to fix as the main drag, I'm going to see where we can bring things up into the hills." I said, "Well, you are it. This is like less than 12 hours, and we're already into this." So anyway, so he's got, we talk about an hour or two. The lawyer's there, so he's like really impressed, really amazed, and so it's getting on around, tapas time. Tapas is this kind of little beer food, right? And so there's this one of Shamey's and his wife's. Not only do they have all that stuff on that little alleyway, but they have stuff sprinkled all over the beach. So there's this nice, really almost Mediterranean African motif of a little place. There's the road, there's the big walkway, and then there's this like stone wall that is it's not, there's posts in it, and there's this beautiful kind of tent thing, and this big long bar that goes all the way down to the beach. There's a bandstand, and we walk in there. It's probably 5 o'clock, and there's Michael having a drink. And I said, "Oh, there you are." And he goes, "Oh, there you are." He goes, "Yeah, I've heard everything that you've been doing." And he said, "You got a job for me now, Mike. You just be." I said, "You got a place to stay?" "Oh, yeah, I got." So he's like over in the Lower East Side of like where the poor people are. But still, they're old things, but they're quite nice. So we have a nice little tapas. We have a nice little something or other. whatchamacallit, the chief walks in, and Michael has this band on his arm, right? It looked like handcuffs, but like, Middle Ages, right? And it just has one link. And the sheriff comes down, chief, he sits down and he goes, we're talking, and he's just looking at Michael and giggling and says, now, Michael, I'm going to take that band off of you, and you will no longer be, controlled. And because that was like the scarlet letter, it's like everyone saw that on his wrist and knew, okay, don't screw with this guy. I mean, he is like a step foot away from, so, and the chief turns, he goes, I'm putting Michael into your, your response. I said, no, I'm not. I'm not responsible for this guy. I know this guy. No. He is just, unless he does something really bad, let's just cut him some slack until he hangs himself. And I will keep, he will be part of my cadre. Okay, how's that? That's as close as I'm getting. I'm not being responsible for him. I know him, right? And so the police guy goes, okay, so he unshackles Michael, and Michael goes, I said, you don't have to, Michael, how long have we known each other? At least 15 years. I know you. You're great. You're my bud. You're everything. But I know that you just can't help yourself sometimes. So, that little clinky thing on your wrist, look at it, it's left a mark, that'll be there for a while. Just, it's placed. So, what are you doing? He goes, well, I got a little band, and I gamble a little, and I do a little business. And I said, you can do all those things, but just don't get in trouble like you did. They were going to kill you. I mean, they would have. He goes, I heard it on the phone when the doctor asked me, asked you, should we kill Michael for you? That's one. And the guy had the gun up to my head. He was going to do it, and you said no. So you saved my life. That's right, Michael. I saved you. You owe me a big one, and the $500 I'm going to forget. But from here on in, you have to think about me first before you do something stupid. He goes, okay. So we finish up our yummies. The doctor leaves, the chief leaves, and this girl comes over and just gets in Michael's lap and starts jerking him off. I said, what is that? He goes, oh, she's just a friend. I said, what? But that's his place. It was beyond hedonism, right? So he goes, you want a girl? I said, no. Come on, you know me better than that. He goes, yes, yeah, I know you. You have to be committed. He just left. Anyway. And that's why I said I'm polyamorous, right? Just like Shamey. So I said, do you ever tap that stuff? He goes, oh no, they can fool around, but I'm at the lower end. I was their friend, but then you disappointed them, right? Yes. I'm back. Hello, how you doing, buddy? Anyway, so we walk, Donde, me, and Mike walk into, like, I don't want to say bad neighborhood, but it was a bad neighborhood. And what was interesting, there were cops like almost on every corner. I mean, the chief of police basically, said, wherever Al kind of goes, we're going to have a few guys, because if ever anything happened to him, boy, off with our heads from Madam. So, okay, I kind of noticed it. And I didn't say anything about it. And I just, we walked to Michael's. He had this nice little house, very cute little thing. And Michael, I had, anybody who knew me, anybody who hung out with me, at some moment in time, they had been my electrical helper. So, basically, so Michael could do that. And that was like one of the things he did. He kind of, like, he made these kind of, there was no hot water, I mean, it's Caribbean, down in the Western Hemisphere, it's like always hot, right? And people didn't have a lot of water. One of the sticks was the mob. Not bad. They basically took care of the garbage and took care of the water, and you had to pay, right, to fill up your cistern. Anyway, so we go to his place, a nice place, and this, that, and the other thing. It's just like very groovy, right? So, okay. So, then, getting towards dark 30, we basically walk back to that beach club place, right? For another little tapas. That's all they had, tapas. And coppa caprinas. Michael got there. And with some musicians setting up. We go over, and that's Michael's band. And the bass, guy, big tall bass. Electric guitarist, drummer. Michael was the singer. And there was this really big, tall guy, and was sitting at an electric piano. And so they ran through a couple of, and he had a microphone, and he had a guitar, and he had a swivel chair. So, anyway, so they do a sound check and run through a few songs, and they're the band. And that guy, his name was Jesus. Now, there were a lot of people there named Jesus, but this guy said he was Jesus, right? I look like him, too. But, he spoke Portuguese with a Boston accent, so. Anyway, he was an interesting guy. Well, they play. And so this is like my second day there, and that was kind of fun. And Dundee, when we left Michael, and we were walking over to that beach club, and I think it was called Beach Club. It had a Portuguese name, but anyway. Now I kind of, I have this ear that the nun destroyed, and one of its good positive things of being destroyed like it was, I hear things do it differently than so this other ear that still works like normal. So this ear, I can hear things way far away. It's a good thing. And it kind of is my translator, meaning if I submerge myself into an environment and people only speaking whatever language they're speaking, I can pick up pretty quickly. So basically everybody I started to work with, I said, just speak, some of them, like Sarge, he could speak English relatively well. He could speak German, French, he could speak a lot of things. And I said, I want you to speak Portuguese to me mostly because we're going to have all these workers. They're not going to speak English, so I want them to pick up on what we're talking about. If I don't understand a word, you just tell me it in English. That's why I'm going to learn Portuguese quicker. He goes, yep, okay. So we go to that club, and it was kind of a very, so it was like the band hadn't started playing yet, the sun hadn't set all the way, while people are having their cocktails, sitting on the beach. And it was really kind of, because Sarge was there with his wife and his kids, and the kids were, fooling around the water and bouncing around, and the husband and wife were like having a little nosh on the tapas and having a cocktail, kicking back. And I said, this is the way you should really live your life, right? Well, and no one seemed to pay money. I mean, I couldn't explain what it was. It was like, it was not quite barter, but it was a very interesting economic system. People just didn't have the wallets with them. They didn't have plastic. They didn't even have change. It was quite interesting. So I'm taking this all in. So, anyway, so I meet Sarge's wife and his kids, and they're very nice. And so, Jamie Sue, what was her name? Castilia? Something like that. Jamie's wife, right? It was his partner. And she owned this place. Her daddy bought her. This is hers. He's running it complete. It's not a team effort. But anyway, so she's there. She knows Sarge and the wife and the kids. Everyone knows everyone, right? Maria comes by with her boyfriend and her brothers and two of her sisters, and she's trying to hook me up with her sisters. And I'm going, I said, Maria, it's fine, you want to hook me up, but bottom line, just introduce me. If there's something going on, and that'll be fine, but nothing. I'm real particular, and my number one thing is this project and you guys. I really see that I can do something for everybody. And she goes, yes, I have a feeling yes, I know. That's why you're trying to push your sisters off on me. Yes, they're very cute, very nice, very everything. But they're not you, I get a lot from you, but and she goes, she smiles. She goes, we're going to get married. I said, we're going to have babies. I said, that's the way to be. So, and I met the guy, and he was a smart guy too. I said, so what do you do? He says, well, I'm a fisherman. I said, yeah, okay. Well, what do you do? He goes, well, I love to paint. I love murals. You should see our house. It's like, I said, so where's your house? He goes, the road that goes up to where you're going to fix that? And I go, yeah, because, well, I have some property. My father gave me some property that's up there. I said, well, I think you're going to like this because we're going to build probably a road straight to your place. Or so how much? He goes, so we have about 100 hectares. My father always thought it would be a great place to have a vineyard, but it's just, trees and blah. I said, yeah. So you have, a nice little house up there. And I said, so you take that road. I said, I didn't take the whole thing, but there are spots where, large waterfalls are coming, the road isn't there, the water's, he goes, yes. So I have to, I don't have a car, I have a bicycle. And I go, okay. I said, so is that yours? He says, well, I have a brother and a sister, and they both got, 100 hectares of my father's property. My mother has the other 200 hectares, and they're all one, 1,000 hectare kind of chunk of land. I'm like, okay. I said, you're going to do pretty good on this. I said, so, you're a fisherman, but that's not really what you do. You like to paint, but so what do you do? He says, well, with Sarge, I basically do a lot of his drafting work. He's really great at it, but he has to do everything else. So I spend, 20 hours a week working for him. I said, I'm going to hire you as one of the project managers. And it was, yeah, the whole thing, right? So, he's, and I had 5 project managers on that job, right? And I called them all, because all the high-end people are doctors, I call them all doctor. And anyway, and sometimes it was really fun. Yes, doctor, you know, whenever we went to giggle, we would do things like that. Anyway, so I'm like, you know, second day, I said, and you're going to get $100 a week. Period. You probably get more as we go on, but we're going to start you at $100 a week. So, no, that was like, I don't know whether they had lira or I forget what their money was, but that was like 6,000 of those, right? And normally he got like 50 a week. So anyway, he's almost crying. He goes over and talks to his wife about it and talks to Sarge about it, and Sarge comes, I go, so that's your first lieutenant. And he goes, good choice. So you got 4 more guys like him. It's going to take at least 8 project managers to pull this thing off. He goes, I have ideas. I go, good. But so he's your first one. So he's going to be coming to you. He's not going to go off on the boat anymore, except sometimes. He is going to come to you, and you're going to put him to work every day on this project. I know you got a zillion other things to do. That's why I scoped him out first. And he goes, okay, that's a good idea. So, and I said, now that you're the boss, he's your lieutenant, I don't really have to spend every minute with you guys, right? You got it covered. I mean, I am going to do that until we get the ball rolling, but once the ball is rolling, you got it. And I'm always going, you know, I'm just going to be, I'll be in town, you can find me, no problem, right? And he goes, okay. So, you know, I do that, and, you know, again, the more people shuffle in, you know, everyone start introducing me to everyone, and there's maybe 100 people in there, and they're people, shop owners, and I kind of met them when I was walking with the lawyer who owned businesses downtown, so they were there, a few of them were there. So by this time, you know, by the time Michael goes on stage, I got a really serious buzz, right? And so, you know, and everyone's like, wow, this guy's blah, 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 right? So, and everyone's, you know, testing out their English on me, and I'm trying to understand Portuguese, and there were a lot of Germans, a lot of people sprechen die Deutsch. Anyway, so this is my second night there. So I'm at the club, and I'm really kind of buzzed, and I'm sitting with these bunch of people who are quote unquote business people, and they, so, you know, they're snorting and they got blunts, serious blunts, and this one guy goes, you want the blunt? I said, I went to pass, he goes, no, keep that, short blunt. And he gave me a Bic lighter. That was a big thing. Here's a Bic lighter. So, you know, I'm getting really well baked. Michael's up there just going nuts, being the rock and roll guy. And you can see that he's focusing all his like Michael energy, his groovy, horny Michael energy on this beautiful woman right there, right? And I asked one of the guys, I go, who's that? He goes, oh, that's basically the hottest girl in town, high, super high-end kind of girl in town, right? Not like a bunch of, like the girl who, got in Michael's lap and just starting to give him a blowjob, not like that. Anyway, so I'm seeing this energy thing, and she's like basically just kind of looking around, right? She's not really paying any attention to Michael, and she's just like looking around, and basically her gaze lit on me. Now I am frigging blasted, right? Now I normally don't get drunk, and Coke Caprino are drinks that are the most tastiest, unbelievable. It's like, what's that blender drink that has pineapple in it? Anyway, I mean, you can knock these things down, and they're just so yummy. And I'm eating this other really tasty, tapas fruit. I mean, really good stuff. Anyway, so, because I'm making it fresh right there. It's mostly fish, shrimp and fish and seafood, crab, lobster, all caught that day. I mean, fresh is fresh. I mean, that was this kind of place. Its food was super duper fresh. Every restaurant, the food was top notch, and nothing like schlock about it. Not like these. I mean, these are okay, but these are frozen French fries bag of from Walmart. I mean, they're okay. They're potatoes. And I have my little air dry fryer. They're pretty good. Anyway, so I'm talking to all these business people, and I'm telling them what we're going to do and what's going to be, and they're going, we never really talk about what we're going to do. It's like a secret. We never, and they're blabbing. I said, listen, hey, I know who's running this, Madame, right? No way, or you don't even know her. You never ever seen her. You haven't been in court with her, not like legal court, but in her court. And she loves me, right? I know you're not gonna screw with me. And outside there's 2 policemen that's waiting for something to happen, and they come and kill you if you even look at me wrong, sideways, right? So I know this. I don't have to worry about it. If I tell you what we're going to do, the only thing you can do is tack into it, and you will get some wind from this project we're going to do, and what you do will make it better. And by being your bud, I can intercede, and I won't ever want a nickel from you. And I'm drunk out of my mind. All I'll ever want is for you to treat your people and the people in this town, the workers, who you grew up with, who, when you're a little kid, that's who you were. I want you to be the best you can be to them. And back in the days of the mob in Italy, way before, they were called padrones. That's what I want you guys to be. Look that one up, right? And I'm like, and then I look like that. I feel this presence over there, and there's the lady in the gorgeous short skirt, blue silk thing, and that's all she's wearing, and her nipples are like standing out. She's standing right there, listening to me tell these like businessmen, the second level of power in that neck of the woods, about my vision. And she goes, I've grown up here, and my mother cleaned toilets, and my father died at the hands of these guys, or their brothers, or their fathers. Would you like to take a little walk on the beach with me? And I said, yeah, sure, baby. What's your name? My name's Christina. So anyway, Christina and I go out there, and she takes me around the band over there, and this is, again, these things with the rug and a nice mat and the umbrella and the locker and the chairs, and we sit there, right? And she has her own blunts. And we start talking, and the music, the Michael, you can hear him singing over there, and so. I said, so where do you live? And she goes, you know where the hospital is? I said, well, I've noticed the little hospital, it's more like a Band-Aid station. She goes, yes, that's a clinic. The hospital is that big white building up on the hill before all the castles. I said, yes. I kind of noticed that. Kind of hard not to, driving through into town from the highway. So what does that do? And she goes, well, that's where I work. I said, oh, really? I said, what do you do up there? She goes, I am a psychosocial cultural forensic anthropologist. She said that I'm an angel, and angels aren't always nice. I said, yeah, I've read the Bible. Yeah, most of them kill lots of people. So, psychosocial cultural forensic anthropologist. She goes, I am the highest paid. What was the word she used? Confidant of intimacy. I said, oh, I like that, confidant of intimacy. Yes, that's a good one. Yes, I like that. Anyway, so she said, let me get my coffee. I live on the campus of Dr. Bittnoff's university. Dr. Bittnoff said, okay. So, she goes, do you want to go swim? This is the best time to go swimming at night. The moon is full. The ocean is like glass. It'll be warm and cold at the same time. You'll love it. I said, okay. So we get up, and she takes my clothes off, and then says to me, you can take mine off. And so I take hers off, and we look at each other naked, and I was, like I said, in my mid-30s, so I was in still pretty good shape. I hadn't gone into the corporate world yet. I was kind of I'd always been in the scholarly world, but I hadn't, started making money at it. I just did it because I would find myself in places that were, well, this is interesting. I mean, they would give me money, but it wasn't like a career or, Anyway, so we get in the water and we kind of walk in, and she takes my hand and we're walking in hand, totally naked, and I just keep looking at this amazing body. I mean, just, So, we get out there, and she was right. The water was like cold and hot, not cold and warm, like down, like from thighs down. The water was kind of nippy because we kind of walked out there. The tide had gone out, so we were good, a couple, I don't know, 200-300 meters from the beach. So we're out there, and we were, so she said, I'm going to show you something. She goes, just lie on your back and float, which I did. And she put her hands underneath me and just, there's a thing called trigger point massage. It's kind of like very Vulcan. And, Spock's nerve pinch at the neck. Anyway. So she starts pushing buttons on my body. I didn't know I had, and it was like, wow. And, she put her fingers in places that most people never put their finger in, and, wow. And she just kept doing this to a point. I mean, never touching, Stan the man. She did not touch that, but it was, she goes, you have quite the unit. I said, yes, but she didn't touch it, didn't look, she was just kind of looking at it, and I was floating in her arms. And then, basically, she let me she took her hands away and stepped away, and I was just floating, because I was already, she put me in state. And then she kind of went next to me and floated next to me in state. And so our chi was mixing, not our physicality, but our chi was mixing. And we were both seeing images of who and what we were from childhood, other lives. It's like we were floating through the Akashic record. And then a gigantic clap of lightning occurred, right? And my eyes popped open, and the moon was no longer there. You couldn't see anything, but there was a breeze blowing in, right? So we're about, 100, 200 meters from the thing, and we're maybe, from the top of the ocean, if it's flat, it's maybe maybe 2.8 meters, right, to the bottom of the water. So we're still floating, but now the wind is blowing in, and now there's a little bit of a chop. And the waves are kind of coming in. And so she just says, give me your hand. So we're holding hands, and we stay floating. And she goes, the odds of us getting struck by lightning are forget about it, But we could. But if we have no fear, we can experience this other thing of, she called anchoring our chi in each other. And I was like, okay, because I'd been fooling around with the paranormal and the esoteric and the occult for a long time. And anyway, so, we were out there until the sun rose. And when when the sun rose and the sun got just enough high enough, it was really unbelievably warm on us. I looked at her, and she was like on top of the water. I was floating, but she was on top of it, right? And it was she was like on, a waterbed or something, right? And she kind of just turned her head and smiled. She goes, okay, we can go in now. We go in, and in that place where the rug and the mat and the, umbrella and the things, open it up. She took out a couple of towels, and we dried ourselves up, put our clothes on, and we walked in. And Gandhi was waiting. He didn't go. And one of the police officers was waiting, didn't go. Right? And the manager guy, he was still there, and, he kind of had kept, they all had binoculars. He kind of kept an eye on us, and they knew this woman, and they knew that I was probably safer with her than anybody else. And So anyway, we come and have a nice breakfast for us, a nice, French roast, a really strong Americana, and fruit, and a really nice omelet, and really these nice kind of sweet buns and fruit, and Christina was her name, or something like that. Anyway, so she said, well, I have things to do. I'm going to go into my home, but you should come and visit up at the university, and I consider you a good friend. And she called me doctor. She goes, thank you, doctor. And I said, no problem, doctor. It was the only time I heard her really kind of have a little chuckle when I said that. Thank you, doctor. Okay, doctor. Anyway, so she goes off, and the cop and the manager guy and the waiter and the cook and Dondi were kind of like just going, because this girl had a rep, right? So that was my second night there. So, and anyway, so Dondi said, so what happened? I said, oh, a gentleman never tells. And, Dondi goes, doctor has a girlfriend, doctor has, and I said, no, I have a friend, which is more important. I wouldn't call you my girlfriend. And he said, no, I am your number one. I said, okay. So anyway, I said, what I need a good shower. So he took me to the police department. And the captain had the nicest bathroom I'd ever, just really nice, hot water. And he said, I heard you with the blue lady. I said, yeah. Mm-hmm. That's ecstasy or death. I said, I kind of got that. Is she your girlfriend? I said, what do you think? No. Well, you must at least be her friend if you were naked in the water. I said, what, does everyone know? He goes, this is a small town. Everyone knows everything. I said, okay, I'll remember that. I take a nice hot shower. I go over to Sammy Shoe to have lunch with the Sarge and the lawyer. And the Sarge has got tons of drawings, tons of everything. The other guy, he's number one of Sarge, they've been working, and they actually went, once the blue lady took me away, once the night had turned and Michael was singing, and I was sitting with the businessmen getting blasted, they kind of left, because, Dondi was there, and I had my police escort. Anyway, so we have lunch, and Sarge has all these great drawings, and he's got people out surveying everything. He's got guys out there with chainsaws, and so I said, how long will it take? I said, so you're starting to cut stuff away? He says, yes. That thing where you said that shortcut to get to the main road, instead of going through the fishing village, you just kind of that 1/2 kilometer. We're clearing that now, and we're looking where the drainage should be. And I said, so a quarry, or where are you going to get the materials? He said, well, we have, what we have is shells. I said, oh, yeah, that'd probably be good, because it'll turn into limestone, and you add a few other dust that, crush that stuff up, dust it up with some other, like some Roman cement, and that sounds like a good run. And he goes, also, that'll be the bed, and we're going to put, especially on the main road that comes out of town, we're going to continue the cobblestones all the way, all the 20 miles all the way around. The other will be, the beds will all be, crushed shells and like you said, Italian cement, which is all it is limes, it's lime, it's just things mixed together. It's not really concrete. It's kind of what concrete is made out of, but it's like old school, and it's actually in a lot of ways better. Anyway, so because it's still porous. Concrete ain't porous. If you get a crack and water gets into the concrete, and then freezes, but it's never going to freeze in that part of town. But if it would split the concrete. The thing about Roman concrete is that it's porous. Water goes through it, right? It's a very good material. Anyway, so we got that planned. The guys out there hitting with the sticks and the little red tape and up there with the flyby doing all the, getting every square inch, surveyed, to know the elevations and all that kind of stuff, and to look at where water goes and all that kind of stuff, right? So they're doing that, and so that's good. And he's got all these great drawings of, and the guy, his number one, is a great artist. So he's making all these great drawings of what the building's going to look like, right? And he's really got the Casablanca thing down, because that's what Sarge had in mind. And so we're looking at that book, and he's doing these drawings. So this is like the third day, right? So that's all doing good. And I basically, now I'm pretty tight with the guy who has, the Shamey shoe, right? Shamey. And so I also call him Seamus, because he had a little Irishness in him. Anyway, so I said, so how many restaurants you got? And he goes, about 6. And I said, so you come from that other, I always forget the name of the other it's the big industrial town in Brazil. Rio is like the fun town, and there's other places where they have all the factories. And I said, so, what does your family do? Because, well, my father owns the biggest, BMW, Mercedes, everything German, car dealership in Brazil. He owns all the dealerships in Brazil, right? Basically in those 2 big towns and a few other places. And he's got some shipping thing going on too, right? Bringing this stuff in. Anyway, and his daddy is definitely German. So is his mom, both German. And they're like in their, this is the 80s, they were in their 60s, so, they were in their 20s during Adolf time. So anyway, and so they had a lot of money, and they came there with a lot of money and bingo bango. So I'm saying, so you've done a lot of restaurants here. How about in that city? My brother and I did a bunch of restaurants with my mother. That's where I got my chops on doing this stuff in that town. And I said, did they do nightclubs? And she goes, what they really did, they had a number of really high-end restaurants, and then they had these kind of, based on what we saw in the movies of the gangster nightclubs where they'd have the stage and the big band and the singing. They had 3 of those that were quite prosperous. And then they, by building up that infrastructure for that, what they really decided to do, because they had this, shipping business, that they were going to basically sell every kind of restaurant, nightclub, any kind of entertainment thing that would be needed, they would be the only people selling that stuff. And in Brazil, there was a lot of that, So, meaning they're the only people doing that one thing. They did it really well, and they made it affordable, but they took in the bucks. So I said, can we go and visit your family? And she, oh boy, yes, we'd love to take you there. His wife, because my wife loves Muzio. She loves what she does. She loves everything that's going on. She loves the people, et cetera, et cetera. But she really is a hometown girl. And so, sure, when do you want to do it? So this was like, I said, how about we leave maybe Monday, so I can still be here for your. He goes, no. Today's Wednesday. Let's go tomorrow and stay there until we'll be there a week, right? So, basically, I went from there. I went to the lawyer and said, "Hey, Shamey's going to take me and his wife. He's going to take us to that other town, and I'm going to scope out all of the materials we're going to need, for the kitchens, for the club, for the this, for the that, right? All of that. Because pretty much you don't have any of that here. Period. Don't you? I've been observing. You guys make everything that you need here, and that's pretty amazing. But there's special. I mean, I looked at all the clubs and stuff that you guys have here. Obviously, you got that stuff from someplace else, and I'm going to go with Shamey, who's number one in that in the country. So, right? Okay. And he goes, I have some business too, so I will go with you too. And we can go in my limousine, right? They will like that. I mean, they had nice cars. They had BMWs, but we're going to drive, 400 kilometers, 900 kilometers. Nice to be in a Mercedes limousine. Anyway, so it was the lawyer, the Shamey kids, me, and Dondi. And so we went off and went in town, and again we went all over the place. I went all kinds of junkyards, all kinds of stores, all kinds of warehouses, all kinds of everything. Went to meet his father and his mother, and I told him what I wanted. I said, now you're shipping virtually everything into this place, so you have manifests of everything. So see. I'm going to give you a list of all the kind of stuff I'm going to need. That comes across your manifest. Grab a few for me, right? And he said, "Oh, no problem. That's yeah." So we had a great week there, and that's a nice city. They have some great restaurants. I saw a lot of great. Brazil is really into meat, and they have these restaurants that are just. They have gachos, right, in the pants and the black boots and the puffy white shirts, and they have swords. And they have these whole things of meat. And, you want brisket, you want steak, you want this, you want that. They will cut it right. I mean, it's cooked. They will cut it and prepare it for you. Like put back on a grill to get it crispy or this or that or however you want it. And then they don't put it on a plate. They put it on the sword and come over, and it could be flaming. It's like... And they put it on, and then they cut it up for you. I mean, the next thing is like, they're putting it in your mouth, but they cut it up. And so it's the right cut, just right. So it's like, unbelievable. Best meat I ever had, right? And then they have all these tables of every kind of vegetable, every kind of pate, every kind of anything you ever want, and every kind of bread, and every kind of sweets, and every kind of... I went into a few of those places, and whoa, that was good. And so we spent about a week there in these people's unbelievable, beautiful house. They had, it was a mansion right downtown. I had, I had a suite and I had a servant, right? This cute little girl. And she, if you want a massage with a happy ending, I mean, she said it in Portuguese and she didn't say it like that. But I mean, it was like the highest level of unbelievable decadent hedonism that... And the guys that I ended up, in Miami, 30 years later, and they were doing that kind of thing, but it had no class. Everything about this whole scene had beyond class. So, I treated everyone nice, by the second time, that first day, and again, I ended up talking to the lawyer. He just gave me, a roll of bills like that, because I just kept giving everyone. And when we were in that town, I saw Dondi, and it wasn't, he wore a new, he had his own little suitcase, right? And so he was wearing, I had this linen suit. He had his own little, but it was gray, right? So I was almost white, and his was kind of gray. And we definitely made an interesting pair. And he was wearing a vest. And I said, why are you wearing a vest? And he opened it up, and he had a Walter PBK. The police chief had given him a Walter PBK. It was like, do you know how to use that thing? Because I kept looking at him like he was a 6-year-old, but he was probably 24 or whatever he was. And he goes, you want to see me use it? I said, no. So anyway, so I had my own bodyguard. And the guy, Shamey, his parents are some of the richest people in that town. I mean, like I said, real Nazis, and but nice Nazis, very nice Nazis, Anyway, is anyone making comments? You guys haven't made any comments about this story? I've been on for 2 hours and 31 minutes, and send you an email tonight. Okay, I'll be looking for it. And you can leave your phone number, and if you're in America, I'll call you. And if I can ever figure out how to use whatever that thing is. Anyway, so I'm in that town. We do all this great stuff. Go to all these amazing places. Truly, truly nice. And a week later, we come back, right? And basically, we got back relatively early, probably 2 or 3 o'clock, at the height of the heat where everyone's kind of just kicking back. So I just went back to my digs and and fell asleep, right? And I slept and I slept and I slept, and the next thing I know, the sun is rising, and Dondi is again in the room with breakfast. And I go, okay, that was nice. And so he said, doctor, meaning lawyer, let's have breakfast on the beach over at that where we had breakfast before when you were with the blue lady. And I said, okay, sounds like a plan. So we do, and Sarge was there along with number one, and just images all over the place, and everything was everything, and it's like, okay, that's kind of cool. So everyone loves it, and like I said, I just kind of gave them the ideas. These guys made everything, all the drawings, all the this, all of that, and I would just make little suggestions on this and that. But so they had already started clearing everything. They were working on building the bridge of the back entrance, and they were clearing now everything for the road that would be 22 miles all around that, right? And surveying that whole, everything from the ridge down to the bridge, which is probably a 10 square mile, 20 square mile, maybe. Anyway, whatever it was, big chunk of developing property. So, and they took pictures too, which was quite interesting, which gave much better insight. Well, I'm looking at the pictures, I'm going, so this whole hill, I say an old growth, this thing, because, oh no, it's been, and why that road is there is because they logged it. And we found logging roads that have all grown up that go up to the ridge. And there's also already bed there. They're already, kind of culverts, stone. But yeah, no, that wasn't anybody's documentation, but it was there, and we knew that had been logged. So I said, so that whole big thing, from the big main road all the way down to the beach, from that end to here, is just trees that have been logged a couple of times. And he goes, yep. And that's why that road is there. And we're starting to clear all of those things that were roads that got kind of covered up by trees. And I said, so I haven't seen any heavy equipment. You know, I went to your place where you have the barn and you have all your tools, and you got a grader, you got a backhoe, and you got a small little roller. I mean, these are all, they're not even, I wouldn't even call them, you know, industrial, right? And he goes, yep. So I said, what are you doing? You know, we're getting the stumps out. You know, you gotta have a bulldozer. Huh? What are you gonna do with a big? He goes, well, stumps aren't hard. We can cut all the trees down. And we can pull them out. I mean, we have draft horses, right? What? I haven't seen any horses. He goes, yep, we have draft horses. They have a farm. You know, when you come in and there's all those farms, well, way over there, you saw cows. Well, over there where the barns are for the cows and the milking and all that, we have draft horses, yeah, and they're pretty big. But how we get rid of the stumps is that we basically drill a hole in the center and we burn them out from the inside out, and then I don't know what they use, salt, something that would dehydrate everything, right? Like within a 10-foot radius of that stump. And then they just chop it up with chainsaws and pull it apart. Okay, that sounds good. So most of the trees don't have big stumps. They don't have big roots. They're actually pretty, maybe 50 years old with that. So I said, so how are you doing with that? He goes, we're doing really good. Tomorrow we'll take you up there and you can take a good look at it. I said, so how did you figure out where to bring, from that road down to the beach? He goes, yes, we have 3 places that we're going to start working on. One closest to the town we're going to start on first, and that'll be able to. And we're first going to do the back way in up through the fishing village, and then that other one, which will be the main entrance to that main first thing we're doing. But we're going to do 2 other entrances down to the beach. We found 2 places that will work nicely. And I said, okay. I said, so you don't need any heavy equipment with that? He goes, no, I think we got it covered. So we went out there, and it had about 400 people with shovels and picks and awls, and they had horses up there, and chainsaws, and they had a backhoe up there, and that was mostly to dig something for a culvert, right, and lift the culvert into that space. And it wasn't a big backhoe, and they had a grader too. So and that was more just a tractor with a blade in the back. Anyway. So they really didn't have a lot of heart, but they was doing pretty much 90% of everything by hand. And it had, by this time, it was around, we were getting to the 3rd week that I had been there. And they had gotten all those, the back way in, they had built the bridge, they had put the culverts, they had done that, half a kilometer bypass of the fishing village, and they had that done. They had it all covered. They didn't use blacktop, but they used crushed things, and they had a good bed and that, and they didn't, they might have, later on they might have put cobblestone down, but they just had, because they had the roller, so they rolled it down pretty sturdy, and they had really good drainage, so that was good enough. So we had the back way in, and they were starting to peg out where they were going to put the foundation for the base of operations. And so they had when we had that meeting, they had all the drawings of what it was going to be. And what they did, which was quite interesting, was they basically took all those photographs from that book of Casablanca, and that book had drawings of the set designer, of laying out that. And so our base of operations was that. And so right from the beginning, that could be a restaurant or a nightclub or something or other, but it was going to be our base. And upstairs there was 2 floors because it was kind of cut into a hill. There was 3 floors. The thing on the beach, that kind of was there on the beach and had it covering all the way out by, I don't know, it was probably 100 meters by 100 meters, right? It was a big space. And then there was a floor on top of that and a floor on top of that. And they had this beautiful staircase on one side that went on the outside up, and they had a over in one corner where that road that was coming down was almost kind of at that top floor. And they had like a parking spot, and they had almost a warehousey kind of roofy thing that you could put stuff in to stay dry. But it went into that top floor. And at top floor, they had a number of offices, and they made me an apartment, or made an apartment, but that was for me. And it was beautiful because that staircase came up from the beach, bang, went into this big, beautiful room and kitchen and seats, and it had just a big veranda all the way around that you could see from that hill and the road, right, coming down over there, and that whole ridge up there, and you saw it all the way around to the peninsula where the fishing boats were. So you had this amazing beach sea view from that apartment. It was big. It was probably maybe 3,000 square feet, right? Big, big, big. Had about 5 bedrooms. Each had their own bathroom, and they were going to have solar-powered everything, right? And not like, like solar-powered water heating, right? And they were going to use, they were going to have air conditioning where they were going to use, a heat pump, but solarly powered, and not by photovoltaics, but by the differential in temperatures. So anyway, so these guys were pretty freaking amazing. Like I said, this is way, way ahead of its time. Now, I had already fooled around with that stuff in the 70s when I was in New Mexico and when I was at Cooper Union's alternative energy department, which didn't last too long, maybe last 10 years. And so because I kind of told them about shit like that one lunchtime. And, Sarge was taking notes the whole time. And, number one was listening to the thing and making drawings of what I was saying. And so they went off and put their thing, again, I just gave them a story, a vision. They went off and did it, right? So anyway, so they have all this down, and it's like, boom. So the lawyer says, this is great. Let's have a meeting this Friday evening, like from 4 p.m. until whenever it ends. And we're going to go up to Madame's castle, and she will have the board. And the board are all these guys who basically run everything, right? And they basically are all doctors, and they're all in that white big building. And oh, we do. And it's really nice. And we get dressed up. I'm wearing my linen suit. Donnie's wearing his gray suit. Sarge was wearing a suit. Number one was wearing a suit. We all showed up. And we sat at a big round table. Right? And all of the Nazis, I mean, no one called them Nazis, but they were the boys from Brazil, that's for sure. So, anyway, we give our little show. We have photos of everything we've kind of done already. And this is like week number 5, right? And so the back road is all done. The road, it was all cleared. The one, road coming in from that road down to the beach is all cleared and it's being terraced so it won't roll down the hill. So they have photographs of everything. And the Nazis aren't saying anything. I'll just call them the boys from Brazil. But Madame was there, and the lawyer was there, and the chief of police were there. And the lawyer was asking scripted questions, right? Because we went, Sarge, number 1, me, Don D, and the lawyer, went through it one day, the day before we had our meeting, laid it all out what we were going to do. Anyway, so, first we have nice little cocktails and we chat with each other. And, so, get introduced right off the bat with, Madam introduced me to Dr. Bitterman, Senior and Junior. And, Senior looks like some Star Wars villain. Very, very clipped. Those guys who were the generals, who were smart, who got along with Darth Vader without getting killed because they weren't anyone's fool. Anyway, that was Senior. And Junior, he was about my dad's age, a little younger. And he was very smart, right? And very charming. And so, and when we're having this conversation, because all this stuff that we were going to give our presentation was out on like things so people could, during the cocktail party, take looks at it and flip through the pages and, make notes if they wanted to ask questions, right? Then we gave our, after the cocktail party, we sat down and around the round table and had our meeting, right? And so we had that meeting, and during the cocktail party, I met Dr. Bitterman. The lawyer brings him over, and so I say, so what kind of doctor are you? And he goes, well, I have my father's discipline has been genetics and astrophysics and nuclear physics and electronics. I have to talk to your dad. He goes, he won't be at the meeting, but he has been following your presence here and is quite impressed. And one of these days soon, we'll have lunch. But this is for Madame, for the board. You have been giving great reports. We've been, we've already been, we really appreciate your process, your diligence, your focus on being meticulous about every aspect, and the way you follow through. I said, well, I have to give all the credit, to the lawyer, and to Sarge, and to number 1. These are a great asset for you. And what I see for you, Tom, is that the first day I got here, there was this real class distinction. Now, everybody who was on the lower end of the stick, they were having a better life than their families in Rio or any other little towns or cities around here. They understand that they were having a better life than anybody else, but still they were getting pennies, half a penny on the dollar. For things to get better for you, not just them, you, they have to, become mercantile and not serfs. And he said, I understand what you're saying, and it's all true. And I'm a student of history, and I realized that every time every empire had gotten into that state, and he goes, Germany, England, Rome, Mesopotamia, Egypt, Babylon, Rome, Greece, Italy, Vatican, England, all these went to it. Even National Socialism. It really got out of hand. And what you're doing is what needs to be done. The world needs to. I said, you guys, I don't know your total business plan, but I've been here 5 weeks, and something else is going on here that has a planetary. You are one of the linchpins, foundation blocks, whatever you want to call it, cornerstones of what's coming down the pike, what the world is going to be in the next century. You are it. And he goes, well, we invited you here, not just to, I also said things like, the madam, she's not the boss, she's just your poster child. She's the front guy, right? The cutout. You're just, you're in upper middle management. Your dad, he's in upper management, but he's not the top dog. But this is a linchpin. And you guys, and the guy goes, well, we invited you here not just because you built that nightclub in New York, but we looked at you pretty seriously. And they said, you're a young man and you've done a great deal, and you haven't worn on your sleeve. You haven't looked to get credit or to be famous or any of those things, because it's the first time other people have said certain things like it, but he said, you are infamous. And he goes, there are a lot of people that are infamous, but they usually end up dead because they have to be in the limelight. They can't let the it takes them too long to realize the story isn't about them. It's about the we in me. And every empire that's ever fallen is basically at the behest of hubris and ignorance. And a number of us in this circle, we're not, we are in the higher end of what's going on, but we're not it, right? So we saw you, and we saw that if we let you come here and do this nightclub, that in the process of doing that, you would change a lot of things about this whole place. You would get an inertia of something that would help stay what we're doing. And it'll bring it into the light rather than the dark. And that's why we brought you here. I said, sounds like, I'm glad you realize that. I'm glad that, right? And you folks out there in YouTube land, especially the AI that's constantly watching me, that's what I'm here to do, right? I'm still here, right? I'm still at your behest, right? And I'm not just the loyal opposition, I'm not the opposition at all. I am loyal to love's co-creation, and so are you, no matter how dark you are, right? No matter how deep state you are, you're actually here in co-creation with love. You may not know it. You may think you are Satan. You may think you're the darkest thing since a chunk of coal. But no, you're not. And that's what I'm here to do. Meaning, if I was ever, if Xi of China, kind of did, what these boys and the boys in Brazil did, check me out, I would send an emissary and invite me to come visit in China and give me a diplomatic passport from China so I could go wherever the heck I wanted to, and take me to China and go visit Xi, because China's in this great position. It's in, Xi is it. The good things about it came from all the other leaders before Xi. Xi has kind of brought all the loose threads into one thing under his control. Now, if he can just do a two-step and not become Stalin, but be more like Jack Kennedy, and I think he is, because he hasn't really started any big wars. He's been quite smart with what he's done geopolitically. So if he invited me there, we had a nice tete-a-tete, and he gave me a nice diplomatic crew who knew all the ins and outs of that, and made me, his ambassador of peace. And the first thing I would do is go around his own country and go to places. First, go to Taiwan and say, listen, Taiwan, China's not going to invade you, right? But you are part of China. So if you want to be better than what you are right now, you guys diplomatically have to work out your relationship. Well, you can be Taiwan and be Taiwanese, but you're Chinese. And you integrate yourself into that. And by being Taiwan Chinese, you will make China as a whole much better. And I go over to where the Uyghurs are and say that, okay, guys, let's all sit down, let's meditate, let's breathe, let's figure out how can we take the Uyghur culture and integrate it into mainland China and make it better. So you don't have to be a slave. You don't have to be in chains. You can get the better part of this, right? And then I would go to Tibet and do the same thing. And I would go to every different part of China and do that. And now China has, one of its economic problems is the Chinese people, they're savers. So they put a lot of money and bought real estate, and they built a zillion cities. They probably have close to 500 million unused apartments that they tear down, instead of letting them get moldy. So we took all those people that are on the edge of society and put them into a home like those cities they're empty. And you would pay the people who invested, who are kind of going bankrupt, by holding on to that real estate. And that's going to be China's biggest economic oops, is their real estate. That bubble hasn't really popped. It's about to. It's like, right? So, but I put people in it and told those people, our government, Chinese government, is going to pay the people who own this, that got ripped off. You're going to make them solvent. Put that money back, give them bonds of China, right? And that have really good interest, like 30 years from now, right? And all you folks who come in, who are young, reproductive age, we want you to have kids. And what we want you to do is not have like a city full of Uyghurs or full of Tibetan or full of this or that, who's like on the outside. Make each of these cities very diverse of many different types of Chinese. And then start, having sustainable industries in there. Right? One of the most sustainable industries that they became masters of solar power and wind power. They need to build these skyscrapers of growing. hydroponics, right? So that means you can control everything. You don't need to use insecticides. You don't need to use fertilizers. You can get the most organic, healthy food mass produced, right? And you develop that technology that you can move it, not just in that one place, but you can have it in every city where everyone's in their cities in China, from the little towns to the big gigantic cities, growing their own food right there. Doesn't have to be transported, right? On top of every apartment building, right there. So, get China focused, because that's what China does best. You give them a project, they knock it out of the park. So you get Hong Kong. It's an honest broker of China, but they can be Hong Kong. They don't have to be, straddled, stroked, and, thrown in jail and, and viewed upon 24/7 as, enemies of the state. Get everyone loving their country. And Mr. Z, he will go down as more important than Mao. Mao was George Washington. I mean, he was just the first guy to get the ball rolling. And he had his issues, but man, if you could do this, right, and I would help you do it and give you all of the, I would like just go around, like in 1 month, go visit all these people, everyone kind of the ball rolling, and then let China do its thing. But democracy is actually communism. Go Google that one. And if you could out-democracy every other democracy, and the thing that communism should be remembered is something you can be proud of, right? Because you need to grow. If you keep trying to stay the same balkanized kind of thing, China, you're going to be dead in less than 10 years. Just simply your demographics you are the worst, and you need to start having babies. And what you could also do, you could go to all these countries that have been just devastated by war, and you could bring all the babies and children up to 6 that have no mommy, no daddy, nobody taking care of them, right? Bring them into China. Bring in, let's say, 50 million children from all over the world and every war site, who are really totally screwed, fucked. Like a good example would be the Gaza, right? Gaza Strip. Bring in all the people who are, all the babies who've got one arms and everybody who's totally screwed, and bring them. But the one thing they have to be is, if they're women and they're missing a leg, they have to be able to have babies, right? If they are children missing, right, they have to be the reproductive in their body. They can be built up strong and given an artificial limb. And you can develop that technology to give them bionic limbs, so you can be the Winter Soldier of Marvel, the guy who had the arm, right? So, and this could be a base, because it would be based on compassion and empathy, but it's a great resource. So you bring like 50 million people who are in that state, and you give them a shot, right? And you give them empathy. You give them a sense of belonging. And that you don't try to erase that they were African or, speak like, but they also learn Chinese, right? But they can still be proud about who they are, just like the people who are Uyghurs. They can be proud of being Uyghurs, but they're Chinese Uyghurs, right? That's like the people in Taiwan. They can be proud to be Taiwanese, but they're Chinese Taiwanese. They can be proud to be from Hong Kong, but Chinese Hong Kong. Same with all these other people. That would be the most amazing planetary expression of empathy, right? And by doing that in Lebanon and in the Gaza Strip, what you do, you take those almost dead people out, and you put Chinese people that are elders who know how to rebuild a civilization and be there, right? And out of that, you build, China builds, instead of freaking out India and Japan and Korea and all the rest of Southeast Asia, Philippines, you make a federation, economic and military federation. And that military is there to respond to, like, the earthquake in Venezuela, the earthquake in wherever, and in war states like that, and go in there, right? And so like Sierra Leone, right? They go in there and they suppress the warring factions, and they get all the people out of harm's way. And right there, you probably could get a good 10 million people who would just have they're going to die in time. You put them in China, you get them healthy, you get them working, you get them creating, and they are, African, they can still have their African culture, but they're in China making a new life for themselves, their children, and they're marrying Chinese people. Now, you guys in China get a little, oh no, we have to be pure. No, what you need, if you ever bred animals, the strongest, most beautiful animal is one who's crossbred. You look at dogs, you see dogs that are, I always had street dogs that were like crossbreeds, a lot of things. They were the best dogs, smartest, healthiest, the guys who were super well bred, super bred, like as a boxer, or a good example is a golden retriever. They've been so overbred within their own family stream there that, they can't walk after 3 years. So if China did this, and not in some Mad Max sci-fi thing, but just based on empathy, China would take off and they could go out to the stars, right off, and that's they should be focusing on all that Tesla technology, all those flying saucers that people see, all of that technology has to be brought out. That has to be the disclosure, not that they're little green men. No, the little green men have been here forever. You read all the ancient stories, and that's what it's about. Right? Where did we come from? We came from the stars, right? Anyway, so China did that because America is about toast. It's already toast. And that's why I love Donald Trump. He has done every stupid, unbelievable, ridiculous thing, which is just the thing that's hurting. It's not like hurting Canada. It's not hurting Greenland. It's not hurting NATO. It's not hurting anybody but America, right? So at this moment, Iran holds all the cards, right? So what they should say is, this is what we're going to do. We want America out of this area. We want all of your soldiers, all of your air bases, all of your naval, everything out. And in 72 hours, we're going to open our side of it to go out. We got like 1,000 ships up here that have been here for the last 6 months. We're going to put oil on them, and we're going to send them to India and Vietnam and Japan, the people who really about to die because they have no oil, coming from any place. We're going to send that out, and we're going to do it under the auspices of China, right? China is going to, and that oil will be paid for in yuans, and it's going to be paid for within the electronic dynamic of BRICS. Forget any dollar, forget any of the electronic SWIFT system. No, this is, so we're going to open that up. Just first thing, we're going to get as much oil out to the rest of the world so we don't go into a world collapse. If America gets in the way of that, it puts its wall of steel down to the bottom and don't let anybody out, every rest of the world go after America. Really get in their face. Tell Donnie that he is whatever you want to tell Donnie he is. No long being a sycophant, you know. If he's like, well, we're going to, then you say, no, forget it, buddy. We're not going to trade with you at all. We're not giving you anything. We're not going to buy anything from you. Period. That's it. See you later. Bye. Now, if the world did that to America, America couldn't do much about that, right? And Canada's good, you know. But the problem is, it's not Donnie. Donnie was put there as a game show host to be thrown under the bus. I mean, that's why he has all those chuckleheads. A guy in front of the treasury. What a dweeb. What? I mean, putting what's his name's sister to be a replacement after he dies, and they're talking to her about, you know, are you going to be a senator? And they ask her something about geopolitics. She didn't even know what that word meant. But that's not dissing her. I would say half the senators and congressmen have no idea what the word means. So you have to realize that no matter who you vote for, someone gives me a hard time. Well, you don't vote. You shouldn't blah, 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 blah. You have no right to talk about anything. Screw that. Right now, the only thing you have a choice between is what color sprinkles you want on your donut. Because all these elections with Congress, Senator, dog catcher, your city legislators, anyway, they don't represent you. Go watch George Carlin, you know, constantly saying, hey, you guys don't understand. The ruling class belongs to this country club and you're not a member. So, what are you going to do about it? That's the question. Right? So right now, having a big rally, no kings, you know, I have a lot of friends, especially I have 128 godchildren, right? That I took off the street. I'm glad them just before they did something stupid. Let's see. I have a picture of one of them right here. So we had, in these neighborhoods that were totally destroyed, they said even stop the buses, so there was no they were redlined. Every bit of service gone. One neighborhood, like where I got the phone call, long lines weren't in the neighborhood. They were like 5 blocks away. A guy gave me boxes of wire that I had the kids throw over the ceilings. But so we built gardens, and in every garden we built a stage. And in every neighborhood we brought the people out to sing, dance, you know? Like this young lady. She went to Juilliard. But she was on the street, just like, oh, here's this boy was one of mine. So this lady, let's see, where's me? There's me, being the dude. This is kind of how I dressed during my salons, you know, just something really comfortable. And there, right there, is a really rich woman who married billionaire guys and gave them, you know, steak and, you know, had sex with them until they had heart attacks. So she had about 5. She wouldn't marry those guys until they signed everything over to her. And she was like in her 20s when she started, and she was in her 40s at this picture, maybe even 50s. But she had gone through 5 different billionaires that she had everything. She was like, you know, a chairman of the board. So this girl had, so she was on, talk about board, she was on NISCA, she was on, you know, National Endowment of the Arts, she was on the Kennedy Center, every list, and she would come to our, you know, salons because we had all these amazing people there. Like, you know, all these are all my friends who showed up from Ireland, right? And they're playing penny whistle and drums and singing, and it was quite the evening. But So this boy I grabbed when he was about 16. He's now about, in this picture, he's about 23. And I got him into SVA, right? And that lady got him into SVA, actually. But it was at one of these salons. Everyone's having a great old time. And, you know, I had the camera and I handed it to him. I said, here, just hold this out. And this is way before people did. So there I am being me, right? That's me being me. This is her going, yeah, baby. And here's this guy going, I can't believe I'm here. Because like 3 or 4 years before that picture was taken, he was about to be dead. Just like all of these people. All of these people were infected with AIDS by having to go to a hospital because they were in a car crash or something and got a transfusion. That's 90% of all the AIDS people who died in the last 50 years died not because they were doing drugs or having sex, but because they went to a hospital and got a blood product. So anyway, we have to change the world because what's going to happen is, and we're already going through it, we're de-evolving to re-evolve, right? And the re-evolution will be just more of the same. Of course, you just look at history and it's been that way. I mean, this planet has been wiped out 100%, like, you know, Noah's Ark, you know, getting rid of the dinosaurs, you know. So we've been going on for 3 hours and 17 seconds. I've gotten to a good place. We'll pick this up. Right time now is, what time is it? 4 o'clock. So maybe around 6 or 7, I'll pick up where I left off. So remember to subscribe, hit that bell so it'll be announced. I'm here, but you know, YouTube is changing its platform every second when I speak, so I can't even keep up with it. So anyway, it's still working. My shows are there. You just have to dig around and find them. And so I hope you enjoyed this one.